Welcome to Moonlight Love Chapters. We'd be thrilled if you could subscribe to our channel and leave a comment on this video. Thank you so much for your support. May the power of the werewolf be with you. The Call of the Werewolf. Chapter 1. Dana. I raced through the dark forest, not paying attention to the path. The moonlight, dimmed by clouds, and flashes of lightning lit my way. The cold rain relentlessly poured down, intensifying with each passing second, and my bare feet ached from the sharp stones and branches. But I didn't stop. How did I end up here? I didn't remember, but I knew the reason: my illness. Somnambulism. Every month at the full moon, I lost control of my body. Usually, it ended with me waking up in unexpected places, on the floor by the door or in a chair. But to be in the forest, this was the first time. I was consumed by primal fear. How long had I been wandering? Where's the way out? Panic tightened my throat, and my breath became erratic. Amidst the thunderclaps, I stopped, gasping for air, my legs shaking from exhaustion. I can't go any further, I whispered, collapsing into the wet autumn leaves. In that moment, a vision of a man appeared before me. He was frighteningly beautiful. Danger emanated from him in waves. A predatory smile, amber eyes with green sparks. They drew me in like an abyss. "You're near," he said. "Feel it. Find me. Help me." I opened my eyes. How long had I been unconscious? The rain had almost stopped, and distant lightning still flickered. Struggling to get up, I wandered into the unknown, trying to warm up. My pajamas clung to my body, the cold seeping into my bones, my teeth chattering. And again, the voice echoed in my head. "Help me." But why me? What could I do? Where should I look for him? It's just a dream. Or is it? The forest seemed endless, but suddenly I stumbled upon a small village. Overjoyed, I ran forward, but a sharp pain pierced my temples. The world swayed, my body went limp, and I collapsed to the ground. I woke up being carried. "Will you help me?" I whispered weakly. My throat was burning, and I was feverish. "Of course," a warm male voice replied. The voice soothed me. I pressed against his chest, feeling a strange warmth that gradually spread through my body. The shivering subsided, but my mind was still clouded. The last thing I realized, I had a fever. The world plunged into darkness. "Miss," a soft voice brought me back to reality. I barely opened my eyes and saw that I was lying in a bed. "You have a fever," he explained. "We need to take off your wet clothes. I'll bring you something dry." He disappeared, and after a few minutes, a slender blonde entered the room with clothes in her hands. "Hi, I'm Zoya. Liam told me to give you these. They're mine. I think they'll fit. I'll help you change." Liam told her? Was she the servant? Where was I? The houses in the village didn't look luxurious, but I was no longer sure of anything. Maybe it was the fever making me feel confused. After I removed my wet clothes and put on something dry, my strength completely left me, and I collapsed on the bed. At that moment, my savior entered. The one Zoya had called Liam. It felt like he'd been standing outside the door, waiting for the moment to come in. Or maybe he had some special connection with the girl. I chuckled at that thought. "You can go now, Zoya," he said in a friendly tone, sitting on the edge of the bed next to me. He held a mug in his hands. Now I had the chance to look at him more closely. His features were soft and pleasant, and his large eyes had an unusual color, something between light brown and amber. He looked to be around 20, like me. My gaze instinctively wandered down, lingering on his broad chest, clad in a dark gray shirt with a V-neck. His strong, muscular arms were impressive. I'd always had a weakness for men who took care of their physique. Liam ran his hand through his long, dark bangs, brushing them from his eyes, and smiled as he handed me the mug. Drink this. It'll help you feel better. What is it? I asked, sitting up a little. Herbal infusion. It'll bring down the fever and help you sleep. And when you wake up, you can tell me about your adventures. Okay. His voice was soft and soothing. I nodded and took a sip. The taste was so awful that I involuntarily grimaced. Yes, I know, it's unpleasant, but you need it, Liam smiled. I had no choice but to trust him and drink the potion. Well done, he praised me, taking the mug and setting it on the table. Now lie down. He carefully helped me settle into a comfortable position and covered me with a blanket. I felt helpless in the hands of this strong man, but I didn't mind. Who wouldn't like such attention? A stranger had brought me into his home and was caring for me as if I were someone close. It was touching. As soon as I closed my eyes, I fell into darkness. A dream. That dream again. The piercing amber gaze with green sparks literally paralyzed me, taking away my ability to think. My heart would freeze, then start pounding wildly, sending waves of shivers down my spine. Who are you? I gasped. Why are you here again in my dream? You'll know when you find me, the mysterious voice echoed. Listen. Follow the call. Find me. I need you. I awoke with a sharp jolt. Someone grabbed my arm and turned me toward them. The room was dark, and for a moment, I didn't immediately recognize that it was Liam standing in front of me. I barely held back a scream. What are you doing here? His voice was stern but not aggressive, more with a slight irritation. You shouldn't be here. Liam turned me around and gently led me out of the room, locking the door behind us. Sorry, I mumbled, embarrassed, lowering my head. I don't know how this happened. It's because of my illness. I'm a somnambulist. Liam raised an eyebrow, surprised. A somnambulist? Interesting. I've never met a sleepwalker. So, you fell on my head straight from the moon? He laughed, lightening the mood. I guess the most beautiful girls live there. I smiled, embarrassed, and looked away. All right, let's go talk. He led me back to the room and sat me on the bed while he sat across from me on a stool. His amber eyes studied me intently. I shivered, swallowed. I had seen that gaze before. No, it wasn't the same as in the dream. The man in my dream looked older. What's your name, beautiful? Liam asked with a smile. Dana. Nice name. It suits you. I'm Liam. How do you feel? You've been asleep for 8 hours. I checked how I felt. The fever had gone down, and my body felt lighter. Thank you, I feel better. Let's check. Liam suddenly leaned forward and pressed his lips to my forehead. I froze, stopped breathing. Yeah, no fever, he confirmed. As soon as he pulled away, I finally took a breath, but my heart was still pounding wildly. Will you tell me what happened? Am I right in assuming your illness led you into the forest? Yes, I admitted. I woke up and didn't understand where I was. This has never happened to me before. But, it felt like something was guiding me. And when I realized I was lost, I got scared. I don't know how many hours I wandered, but at some point, I saw houses. You're lucky you didn't get hurt and made it to our village. These forests are dangerous. Wolves live here and other, even more terrifying creatures. I swallowed, realizing the danger I was in. But now I was safe, and that was the most important thing. Can I make a call? I suddenly remembered. My mom is probably worried. Liam took out his phone and handed it to me. I quickly dialed the familiar number, but no one answered. My heart clenched painfully. This is strange. Mom never turns off her phone. She's not picking up. I exhaled, feeling increasing anxiety. Don't worry, Liam reassured me. Try again later.
You need to rest now.
But the anxiety wouldn't let go.
No.
I shouted in panic. Take me home, please. An unfamiliar worry was growing in my chest. I needed to go home urgently. All right, let's go. But first, you need to eat, or you'll get weak, and your mom won't forgive me for that." Liam smirked.
No objections.
"Fine." I gave in, smiling. A few minutes later, I was sitting in the kitchen, finishing off scrambled eggs with bacon. After breakfast, I went after Liam. A white foreign car was waiting for us outside. "Your carriage is ready, madam," he said with a theatrical bow, opening the door for me. "Miss," I corrected him and got into the car. The entire way home, I couldn't sit still. The anxiety was building, and Liam, trying to distract me with his jokes, only achieved a faint effect. But when I stepped into the apartment and found that Mom was gone, my heart squeezed with fear. I dialed her number again and suddenly heard a ring in the apartment. Turning around, I saw Mom's phone on the windowsill. "This is strange," I muttered, picking it up. She always carries it with her. "Maybe she was just in a hurry?" Liam suggested softly, placing his hands on my shoulders. I shook my head. No. If she had gone to look for me, she would have definitely taken her phone. Not knowing what else to do, I called Aunt Galia, Mom's sister.
Galia, e.
"Do you happen to know where Mom is?" I asked as soon as she picked up. Even though she lived over 100 kilometers away, she was always aware of what was going on in our family.
Dana.
"Where have you been?" She cried, immediately bursting into tears. "We've all been going crazy. Nadia called me last night. She said you were missing." Something painful tightened in my chest, and tears welled up in my eyes. "I'll explain everything later. Where's Mom? I came home, and she's not here." "Oh, Dana."
You don't know, she gasped.
I nervously swallowed, moistening my dry throat. "Aunt Galia, please don't be silent. Your mom went out to look for you last night. She ran out on the road and..." Aunt Galia's voice trembled. "She was hit by a car. She didn't survive." "No." The words pierced me like a knife. The ground disappeared from under my feet, and my head spun. "Don't worry, sweetheart. I'll take care of the funeral. Just hold on." I didn't hear the end of the sentence. The phone slipped from my hands. At that moment, Liam's strong arms caught me, preventing me from falling. "It's going to be okay."
Hold on, all right?
He whispered, pulling me close. I burst into tears. The pain squeezed my chest, and an endless emptiness filled my soul. "It's my fault," I whispered barely audibly. "If only she hadn't gone after me." "Dana, this is not your fault." Liam tried to calm me, stroking my head.
No.
I stood up abruptly and started pacing the room. "It's my fault." In a wave of despair, I swept everything off the table, fell to my knees, and cried. The world darkened before my eyes. "Dana, open your eyes." A concerned voice reached me. I struggled to open my eyelids and saw Liam. "What happened?" My voice was weak, just like my whole body. "You passed out." Memories rushed back, and I started crying again. "Tell me this is a dream," I asked, hoping. "I'm sorry, Dana." Liam squeezed my hand. "I know it's hard, but you have to be strong." I turned away so he wouldn't see my tears. "What do I do now?" I whispered. "I'm all alone." "What about your father?" "He and Mom divorced 3 years ago. He went to Sakhalin, and I haven't seen him since. I wish I could go far away. I don't want to go back to that apartment." "Then you can stay with me. You can rent out the apartment. You'll need the money now." I nodded, making a decision. "I'll do that." I didn't care anymore. Everything had lost its meaning. The only thing I wanted was silence and solitude. I hoped I would find some peace at Liam's place. Chapter 2.
Then.
Liam gave me a spacious room. For 2 days, I didn't leave it and didn't touch any food, no matter how much he begged. On the 3rd day, we went to the funeral. I don't know how I survived it, probably only thanks to Liam, who became more than just a friend to me. He became like the brother I never had. He supported me, tried to distract me, and didn't let me fall into the abyss of despair. Without him, I wouldn't have managed. One night, I found myself back in that very room. I didn't understand why I was unconsciously heading there, but something in that room was drawing me in. Liam had warned that if this continued, he would lock the door. But what was he hiding in there? Perhaps something terrifying? Maybe even a corpse? I was overwhelmed with curiosity, which I struggled to control. I had to look inside and find out what made this room different from the others, to unravel Liam's secret. After all, I'm a girl, and we're drawn to the forbidden. Late in the evening, after returning from the kitchen, I climbed to the second floor and stopped in front of the closed door. A sense of excitement flared inside me. I knew Liam had gone to the city, and my desire to satisfy my curiosity took over. I quietly approached, looked around, no one. Sighing in relief, I pressed my lips together and decisively pulled the metal handle. The door gave way. My heart started pounding harder, and my mouth went dry. I knew I was doing something wrong, but I couldn't stop. Taking a step inside, I felt a warmth spreading through my body. The unknown scared me, and the fear of being caught wouldn't leave me. Gradually, my eyes adjusted to the darkness. In the corner, by a window with half-drawn curtains, there was a bed. Someone was lying on it.
Damn.
Just a sleeping person. And my imagination had already conjured up anything, from a corpse to a prisoner. What a vivid imagination I have. I was about to step back, but something held me there. Without realizing how I got so close, I found myself standing next to the bed. Holding my breath, I leaned over and examined the male silhouette. My heart raced even faster, and a tight knot formed in my stomach. Without thinking, I reached out and gently touched his scruffy cheek. I couldn't make out his face in the dark, but the strange pull between us was palpable. The man didn't react, continuing to sleep. I frowned. Was he under the influence of sleeping pills? Sudden footsteps in the hallway made me flinch. The door suddenly swung open, and faint light poured into the room. Liam stood in the doorway, his arms crossed over his chest. I couldn't see his expression, but I could clearly feel his displeasure. His voice thundered in the silence. I backed away toward the bed, feeling a wave of icy guilt wash over me. What an idiot I was. Why did I even go in there? Liam had helped me, and I just let my curiosity get the best of me. He flicked the light switch, momentarily blinding me. Then, with heavy steps, he entered the room. Before I could comprehend what was happening, he led me out. "This is my older brother, Theo," Liam finally said, closing the door behind him. "He's been in this condition for 2 months. Damn coma won't let go." He shoved his hands into his pockets and lowered his head. "What happened to him?" I asked cautiously, still feeling guilty for intruding on someone else's secret. "He lost the one he loved. She died."
No.
"She left him." "If he reacted like that, it means he truly loved her," I muttered. "That's rare. And what did the doctors say?" "The usual phrases. We did everything we could. Now it's up to him. But it seems Theo just doesn't want to live." Liam pressed his lips together. I wanted to comfort him, but what could I do? A heavy silence hung between us, and I decided to lighten the mood. "I'm going to sleep. Sorry for finding out all of this. And don't lose hope." I gently touched his shoulder. "He'll wake up for sure. Good night." In my room, I turned on the TV and lay down, but sleep wouldn't come. I kept tossing and turning until I finally drifted into a light doze. And then he appeared again. I glanced over his broad shoulders, muscular arms, and defined abs. "Come on, Dana. Get it together. What are you thinking?" "Who are you?" I asked. But he didn't answer, just softly said, "Follow my voice. Help me." And then he vanished, like a ghost, leaving only the echo of his voice in my mind. And I went after him. I suddenly woke up and couldn't believe my eyes. I was sitting on a chair by Theo's bed, holding his hand. I jumped up, my heart racing wildly. What am I doing here? A sunbeam slid across the room, and I, gathering my courage, sat back down. Theo lay still, but now I knew it was him, the very same man from my dream. It all added up. His age, his features, the dark hair. How is this possible? What does all of this mean? Despite his deep sleep, Theo's face seemed tense, as though something was troubling him. I gently touched his chest, feeling his steady breathing. And then a faint growl, barely audible, but real. I quickly pulled my hand back. This can't be happening. Or could it? As I continued to watch him, I struggled to suppress the urge to touch his lips. A warmth spread through my body, which scared me just as much as what was happening. Why am I feeling all of this? Why am I so drawn to a person who isn't even awake yet? I pressed my lips together in frustration with myself, watching Theo's still form, barely holding back tears. So young, so beautiful, and barely alive. It felt so unfair, and anger boiled inside me, at fate, at life itself. How much longer are you going to lie there? I tried to sound firm, but my voice betrayed me, trembling. You have a family, a brother who's waiting for you.
Fight.
If not for yourself, then at least for him. Suddenly, I felt someone's gaze on me. I spun around sharply and met Liam's deep golden eyes. He was silently watching me, leaning against the door frame. Have you been here long? I asked. Long enough to hear every word you said. Sorry if I... Don't apologize, it's no longer important, he interrupted, stepping into the room. You know, I've already tried everything. I talked to him, begged. It's useless. He doesn't want to come back. Seems like wherever he is right now, it's better for him. Liam sighed heavily. Don't lose hope, I tried to encourage him. The important thing is he's alive. Liam knelt down by the bed, resting his hands on the edge of the headboard. I'd give anything for my brother to wake up. His hands clenched into fists. He was tense, his gaze fixed on Theo, love and devotion clearly reflected in it. It touched me deeply. I gently placed my hand on his shoulder, trying to offer comfort. Can I come visit him? Sometimes? I asked uncertainly, removing my hand. Of course, come anytime. From then on, I visited Theo every evening. Hi, Theo. I greeted him quietly as I entered the room. I pulled a chair closer to the bed and sat down. How are you feeling today? Have you decided to come back? Liam's having a hard time without you. I sighed, pausing for a moment. Who am I to think he might respond to my voice? We aren't even acquainted, but his image had appeared in my dreams, calling, asking for help. That means I should try. My name's Dana. I introduced myself. Your brother helped me, and now I'm living with you. I hope you don't mind. Silence. I don't know why you chose me. What's so special about me? But I want to find out. I hope you'll wake up soon and tell me. You will, right? I smiled faintly. Chapter 3.
Huh?
Days passed one after another, but they brought neither joy nor freedom. Only my conversations with Theo gave them some meaning. I told him about my day, about how I missed my mother, and the attachment to him grew stronger. I began to fear the moment when he would wake up. How would he react to my presence in his home? Today, I came again. Sitting on the edge of the bed, I gently placed my hand over his. As before, a slight shiver ran through me, as if from a weak electric shock. Not understanding what had come over me, I moved closer. My hand involuntarily reached for his face, and I touched his lips with my fingertips. Something wild and unfamiliar flared inside me. I became embarrassed, hiding my face in my hands, trying to calm the tremor. Finally, lifting my gaze, I whispered, "Come back. Wake up. It was you who brought me here."
But why? Tell me. Sudanli, Tausha Eilit Dwai. His nostrils flared, sensing something.
Abruptly, his eyes snapped open, and he grabbed my wrist. I froze, my heart racing wildly. Something animalistic flashed in his amber eyes with green flecks. Throwing off the blanket, he swiftly rose and, with a growl, grabbed me by the throat. I didn't have time to realize how I ended up pressed against the cold wall.
Who are you?
He growled, burning me with his gaze. His nostrils twitched, as though sniffing something. Human, he spat. What are you doing in my house, you wretch? I shrank back, not understanding what was happening. Of course, I was human. Who else could I be? Theo growled again, his eyes flaring with a yellow light. Panic surged inside me. Theo, let her go. Immediately. Liam's stern voice rang out, with a hint of a growl. I was relieved to see him more than ever. But instead of obeying his brother, Theo growled at me again, his hot breath searing.
Theo.
I said, let her go. Liam barked. This time, Theo complied. Releasing me, he lowered his head before his brother. It looked strange, but I didn't pay much attention. I coughed, rubbing my throat. Don't you ever do that again. Theo growled, then added, did you even think when you brought this creature here? The words hit hard. I lower my head, feeling hurt. How could he say that about me? What did I do to deserve such treatment? Tears stung my eyes, but I bit my lip, holding back my emotions. Watch your words, brother. Liam scolded him. Don't be rude. I understand you, but this girl hasn't done anything wrong to you. She's not Alice.
Calm down.
I glanced at the brothers with guilt. It was my fault. I shouldn't have touched Theo. I don't care. She's human. His gaze, full of hatred, pierced me, making me tense. That's enough. Calm down, come to your senses, and we'll talk. You've been in a coma for 2 months.
A lot has changed during that time.
I'm so glad you're awake, brother. They hugged, but the resentment toward Theo burned inside me. I understood. He had been betrayed, his feelings trampled. But what did that have to do with me? Why hate all women and take out his anger on me? It was foolish. I quietly left the room. 2 hours passed, but I still couldn't bring myself to face Theo again. His behavior didn't make sense. Why so much anger and cruelty toward a stranger? Had I reminded him of the one who betrayed him? I tried to understand, but couldn't. My stomach growled, and I had to go to the kitchen. As much as I wanted to lock myself in my room, avoiding Theo wasn't going to work. But not today. I'll pretend he's not there. Descending the stairs, I tried to push him out of my mind, but it was impossible. First, he followed me in my dreams, and now, in reality, it's time to stretch my bones and let the beast run around. I heard his voice. Not yet, Liam replied. Did you see the doctor? He needs to examine you.
Beast? What is he talking about?
That intrigued me. I entered the kitchen, casually opened the fridge, and started looking for something to eat. Ignoring him was the best option. Looks like you didn't waste any time, brother, Theo smirked. How long have you been sleeping with her? They're all the same. Aren't you afraid you'll end up with the same fate as me? I struggled to hold back my indignation. First creature, now her? This was beyond.
Tao, Shudu.
Liam roared. Don't you dare insult Dana. You have no idea what she's been through. I don't care. She deserved it. Those words were the last straw. My lips trembled, and tears rolled down my cheeks. Deserved it? What did I do to deserve that God took my mother? Why? I silently placed the apple on the table and ran out of the kitchen, wiping my tears. Chapter 4.
Tay.
Tender fingers touched my lips. I felt the touch, though my body seemed weightless. A snap like a lightning strike, right to the heart. And I realized, it's time to fight for my life. for the one who awakened a whirlwind of emotions in me. I tried to move, but my body felt as if it were shackled in chains. Darkness enveloped my mind. Get it together. Fight, you son of a bitch. Another attempt, and again nothing. But suddenly, I heard a voice pleading for me to come back. The chains snapped instantly. The shackles disappeared. My mind cleared, and my body returned to life. My eyelids fluttered. I eagerly inhaled the air and froze. The smell of a human filled my lungs. Indignation stirred inside me. A growl rumbled from my chest. I opened my eyes sharply. Before me stood a girl. She looked like Alice. She was reaching for me. I grabbed her wrist and squeezed. The hated scent of a human hit my nose. The pain of betrayal flared again, like shards piercing my heart. The scent of fear, heavy breathing. I leapt out of bed, growled, and pinned her against the wall, slightly squeezing her throat. Chestnut hair, gray eyes, dimples on her cheeks. If it weren't for Liam, I would have killed her. Why did he bring her to our house? Did he fall in love?
Fool.
Human girls are all the same. They only care about money. Alice betrayed me for a rich man.
I a humans?
I shut myself off. I gave up my place as alpha. My beast suffered, howled, and longed for her. But I wasn't going to be an idiot twice. I had to kill Alice, so she wouldn't reveal our secret. You can't just leave. Liam stopped her when she came back for her things. You know who we are.
So what? She scoffed.
You think I'm going to run and tell someone? No one will believe it. They'll just point at their temples. Let's finish her off, brother. I growled. Claws were already emerging from my hands. I could barely control the beast inside me, wanting to deal with the traitor who had torn apart the bond that bound us, destroyed the unity of the wolf and the pair. We're not killing anyone, Liam said. Let her go. Are you serious? You're really going to just let her go? She's already betrayed us once. She'll do it again. Do you really want to trust the pack's life to some human girl? I won't allow it. A growl escaped from my throat. When you take the alpha's place after the new moon ceremony, you'll make the decisions. Until then, we make decisions together, and I don't agree with you. Since our views are different, let's do what our father would have done. We'll let her live. I growled in displeasure, but complied. Father taught us restraint and how to handle situations without unnecessary bloodshed.
Fine.
Let it be. But everything inside me was boiling.
Fine.
Let her go. I shot her a disdainful look. But if you so much as whisper about us, I called after her. I swear I'll rip your cold, callous heart out myself. I spat and growled. Tears glistened in her eyes, but I didn't care. Let her go before I changed my mind. But my wolf couldn't forget her, especially that look, full of sorrow, when she said she was leaving for another. There was something unsaid in that. The anger slightly subsided, and I decided to talk to her. But what I saw outside her house made me hate her forever. A man of Eastern descent in an expensive suit stood next to her. He was holding her around the waist, like she was his property. My wolf howled for vengeance, but I suppressed the urge and simply walked away, burying the last hope. The days dragged on in torment. Thoughts of Alice tore me apart. My hatred for her grew with every passing day, and I barely restrained the urge to find her and tear her apart with her new lover. Let her feel the same pain that burned me. But the separation was killing me. I was fading away, until one day I fell into darkness. I woke up with no memory, no feelings for Alice. It was as if I was reborn.
And it was a relief.
I was free, but Dana, she troubled my wolf. When I grabbed her by the throat, the beast bristled, clearly dissatisfied. I don't know what it was, but I wouldn't let it make another mistake. When Liam and I were sitting in the kitchen and Dana walked in, I couldn't help myself. Looks like you've been busy, brother, I smirked. Been sleeping with her long? They're all the same. Aren't you afraid you'll end up like I did? I said it loudly, deliberately, so she would hear. For some reason, I wanted to piss her off.
Cow, shut up.
Liam growled. Don't insult her. You have no idea what she's been through. I scoffed. She was maybe 20. What could she have gone through? I don't care, I snapped. She probably deserved it. Dana threw the apple on the table and ran out. I just smirked. She was nothing. If it weren't for my brother, I'd have already thrown her out of the pack. But the wolf inside me was dissatisfied. He didn't share my thoughts. Happy, Liam snarled, slamming his fist on the table. The dishes clattered. What's happening to you? I don't recognize you. I crossed my arms over my chest and stared at him. You know, he leaned forward, pressing his hands on the table. You should thank Dana. She saved you. If it weren't for her, we wouldn't be talking right now. And this is how you treat her? Like she's nothing. So do me a favor, go apologize. Apologize? I recoiled. Never. We silently stared each other down for a while. Are you sure your Dana is great in bed, since you're defending her so much? I smirked. But I will never, hear me, never stoop to apologize to some. Liam tensed. Anger boiled inside him. His wolf was clawing at the surface. What, you want to challenge me? I spread my arms. Go ahead, but your guts won't hold up. The brother gripped the tabletop so hard that it cracked. I imagined him squeezing my throat the same way and smirked. He won't win anyway. I'm older, which means stronger. Well, what are you capable of, Alpha? I continued to press. I'm not going to fight you, he gritted through his teeth. But tell me, Theo, why are you acting like the lowest scum? Do you think it will make you feel better? The pain won't go away. I couldn't listen to this anymore. Tearing off my shirt, I allowed the wolf to take over. My body began its transformation, and my clothes tore at the seams. Once I had changed, I rushed out of the house and sprinted into the forest, to the river. I stopped at the shore, took a deep breath of fresh air, filled with the scents of the woods. My lungs instantly filled with the spicy smell of pine needles, tree bark, resin, damp earth, and autumn leaves. How I had missed this. This natural cocktail sobered me and made me realize my mistakes. I understood how foolishly I had acted in my confrontation with my brother. I regretted the harsh words I had said to him. Maybe the coma affected my mind because I couldn't explain my behavior any other way. And I had wronged Dana for no reason. Liam was right. She wasn't to blame for my troubles. With this thought, my inner beast stirred. Shut up, I growled at it. But still, Dana is a human, just like the others. Deceitful, selfish, dreaming of a beautiful life and a rich man by her side. One day, she'll show her true nature, and then I'll tell Liam. I warned you. I slowly padded toward the residential area. It didn't matter whether Dana would see me in my beast form. On the contrary, perhaps it would make her leave the pack. The hope was weak, though. If she had managed to manipulate Liam, she probably wouldn't leave willingly. Though, what was she doing here? We live modestly. We don't have millions, and even our food comes rarely. The forest provides all we need. When I approached the house, a low growl escaped my chest. Then, pushing the door open with my paws, I entered. At that moment, I felt the air filled with her scent. It saturated the entire space. Like a sponge, I absorbed the scent, unknowingly moving toward its call. I didn't even realize how I ended up in the room by the bed, where Dana lay, curled up with her legs tucked beneath her. She was asleep, her long chestnut hair spread across the pillow. I wanted to drown in this warmth, breathe in the scent deeply. I took a step closer, not tearing my gaze away from her peaceful face. I listened to her steady breathing. The temptation was irresistible. I closed the distance, inhaling the scent of her skin, allowing myself a moment of weakness. The wolf growled in satisfaction.
Donnerstedt.
I tensed. What am I doing here? Suddenly, her eyes snapped open, and her gaze, filled with terror, locked on me. She jumped up sharply and, realizing what was happening, screamed at the top of her lungs.
Damn.
By letting her see my true form, I had made a mistake. Without thinking, I rushed out of the room. Chapter 5. Through the haze of sleep, I felt a strange presence. Something cold and damp brushed against my cheek. Then I heard a muffled growl. I tensed and suddenly opened my eyes. In front of me, a wolf's muzzle. A primal fear gripped me. My throat tightened, my breath caught. I blinked, hoping it was just my imagination. But the beast didn't disappear. Its gaze met mine, and I struggled to swallow the lump in my throat. When I realized this wasn't a dream, I jumped out of bed and screamed. The scream scared the animal away. It immediately bolted from the spot and fled, leaving me alone with my fear. My heart pounded wildly, my palms were sweaty, and a heat spread through my body. The door crashed open, and Liam burst into the room. I immediately threw myself into his arms, holding onto him tightly, seeking protection. What happened? His voice sounded tense. There was a wolf, I whispered, still trembling. A wolf? He asked, pulling away and looking into my eyes. His gaze was thoughtful. Are you sure you didn't imagine it? I'm sure. It was right next to me. A wolf, Liam muttered, then cursed. Theo, damn it. What does Theo have to do with it? I didn't understand, sitting on the bed. Never mind. He waved it off. But how could a wild animal be in the house? Maybe it wandered from the forest. Liam smirked. Very funny. I snorted. By the way, this isn't the first time it's come in. Remember this morning when I ran out of the kitchen?
Yeah, well.
I was sitting on the porch, crying, and suddenly a wolf ran past me. Huge. And it ran out of the house. You were crying? Because of Theo? Liam seemed more concerned about my tears than the fact that a wolf had appeared. It felt strange, like he was trying to change the subject. Yeah, I was crying. So what? I'm a girl. It's natural for us. I didn't want to admit that Theo's words had affected me more than I expected. Don't defend him. I know his words hurt you, but he hasn't always been like this. I'm not upset. I shrugged. I know he didn't mean to hurt me. And anyway, I hesitated, realizing a sudden thought. When I leave, Theo will be able to breathe easily. Liam sat down next to me, watching me closely. You've decided to leave? I think it's for the best. I can't keep relying on your kindness. It's time to move on. You're right, but know that I'm not pushing you away. I know. I smiled warmly. You're a good person. Thank you for everything. It's nothing. When do you plan to leave? Do you think Theo will tolerate me for another week? Liam laughed and, taking my hand, said, He'll have to. Well, in that case, listen, can you pick me up from the city tomorrow? I think it's time to go back to college. I've missed so much. Of course.
Call me.
I'll leave my number. Deal. I smiled, feeling a strange sense of relief. Liam was undoubtedly very good. After he left, I changed into pajamas and crawled under the blanket. Sleep took me instantly. When I woke up, I stared in confusion at Theo, who was shaking me by the shoulders. What are you doing? I protested, my voice hoarse from sleep. Stop shaking me. He obediently removed his hands, but didn't think to step back. What's going on? Where am I? My gaze darted around the room, trying to grab onto something familiar. This was Theo's bedroom. But how did I end up here? The memories didn't form a clear picture, as though they were shrouded in thick fog. And then it hit me. I'd sleepwalked again. Well, just what I didn't need. I turned my gaze to the man standing in front of me and gasped, covering my mouth with my hand. Only now did I realize he was completely naked. Completely. Not a stitch on him. And he was dangerously close. So close that he must have heard how wildly my heart was pounding. Oh, God. An electric shiver ran through my body, and my legs wobbled. I swallowed, feeling my cheeks burn. Trying to calm my nerves, I nervously cleared my throat and blurted out, "Are you out of your mind? Why are you walking around like that?" My voice trembled, but I couldn't think of anything better. The best defense is offense. "Actually, I'm at my own house," Theo smirked, raising a dark eyebrow. "And this is my room. You came to me, so no complaints." I barely kept myself from glancing down. The thought alone made my skin flush with heat. "Well, I didn't drag you here," he answered calmly. "But since you're here, undress." What? I froze, shocked. "Undress," Theo repeated, and there was no hint of a joke in his voice. His intense gaze slid over my figure, covered only by a thin tank top and shorts. I even thought I saw a flicker of excitement in his eyes. Theo extended his hand, easily sliding down the strap of my tank top. I stood frozen, too scared to move. My breath grew heavy, my throat dry, and my thoughts scattered like rats off a sinking ship. "What's wrong?" His voice became even deeper, almost mesmerizing. "Isn't that why you came?" I raised my eyes to him and saw fire in his gaze, wild, untamed. The heat coming off of him made me want to sink through the floor. "Admit it, you're tired of my little brother. You wanted something new? Some thrills? Right?" His voice became sharp, insistent. Well, a wave of tremors ran through my body, my pulse racing. "Why are you silent? Did you swallow your tongue?" I didn't. My voice betrayed me, cracking. "What does Liam have to do with this?" Theo suddenly grabbed my wrist and pulled me toward him. I couldn't resist and found myself trapped in his strong arms. His face was so close that I held my breath and squeezed my eyes shut, either in fear or expecting a kiss. No, not like this. Not now. Finally, summoning all my strength, I pushed him away. "I'm not some," I gasped, out of breath from anger. I remembered all his harsh words, all the mocking insults he'd thrown at me since our first meeting. "Not some?" he sneered. "Then get out of here." Theo grabbed my elbow roughly and shoved me out the door. There was a dull thud, and the door slammed shut right in front of my face. I stood there, stunned, unable to believe what had just happened. Anger and humiliation overwhelmed me. I rushed to my room, threw myself on the bed, and dug my fingers into my hair. Disappointment burned inside me. Chapter 6. Tang. I lay on the bed, hands behind my head, absent-mindedly staring out the window. The night had completely enveloped the streets, but I couldn't sleep. The familiar scent lingered in the air, Liam. It reeked of anger, the kind that cut to the bone. I smirked. He must have rushed here after Dana's scream. Well, I was right. Liam stormed into the room, seething with rage. "Are you an idiot?" he growled. "When will you start thinking with your head? What if Dana realized that the wolf she saw wasn't just an animal?" The last part, he said quietly, but I heard it perfectly. "Lower your voice," I snapped, sitting up and giving him a warning look. "Don't forget who you are. Alphas don't get away with mistakes like that. And anyway, nothing serious happened." "Nothing serious?" Liam shot back. "You scared Dana. So what?" I smirked. "Do you think I should apologize to her on my knees now?" Liam's eyes flashed, but he held himself in check. "Next time, be more careful," he muttered. I shook my head, barely holding back a grin. This kid thinks he can teach me a lesson? Funny, especially considering how much he's changed since Dana came into the picture. Is that all? I raised an eyebrow, looking at him. That's all, my brother replied. He turned and left. What's his deal? Is he worried about his sweet little girlfriend? I couldn't care less about her. Some time later, the door to my room opened again. I frowned when I noticed the slender figure dressed in a white tank top and lilac shorts. The beast inside me stirred, but I ordered it to be silent. I got up from the bed and approached the girl who stood in the middle of the room, frozen. She didn't say a word, just stared blankly ahead. "Can you hear me?" I asked, stepping closer, scrutinizing her glassy eyes. "Are you deaf?" I snapped my fingers in front of her face. No reaction. She stood there like a zombie. I had to shake her by the shoulders. That worked. Dana blinked and muttered something outrageous. I pulled my hands back and she looked around, as though not understanding how she ended up here. After a moment, her attention returned to me and she gasped when she saw me, completely naked. Her heart raced and her cheeks flushed. I smirked. After my line, "Since you're here, undress," she nearly fainted, blinking at me in shock. I glanced over her slender body. The beast inside me stirred violently, demanding that I take her in my arms and brand her. I shook my head to rid myself of the vision and hooked my finger on the strap of her tank top, slowly pulling it down. I was overwhelmed by waves of excitement from this little game. Dana's heavy breathing, so close to me, was driving me mad. Her tempting chest, rising with every breath, drew my eyes. Yes, Dana was truly beautiful. I couldn't deny it, but she's human. And humans are capable of betrayal. They don't appreciate what they have. They don't know how to love or respect. Right now, instead of being with my brother, she's standing before me. That infuriated me. I grabbed her wrist and pulled her to me. When she was in my arms, the wolf inside me growled. Dana shut her eyes, and I, thrilled by her tense body, could barely hold back my desire. I imagined capturing those innocent lips in a kiss and tormenting them until we couldn't breathe anymore. The wolf growled in response. But my fantasy shattered when she started pushing me away. I let her go and, unable to hold back, dragged Dana out of the room. "Then get out of here," I snapped. When the door slammed behind her, a growl escaped my throat. I paced the room, running my fingers through my hair, but then, unable to hold back, I punched the wall. My body was still aroused, and I struggled to contain my desire. Dana's face lingered in my mind, and I could still hear her ragged breath. It annoyed me. The next day, my brother and I went for a run, having a little competition like we did as kids. We raced through the forest until I heard a sound coming from somewhere nearby. I tensed, listening. "Did you hear that?" I asked him mentally. Realizing where the sound was coming from, I ran deeper into the forest and found the phone. When I picked it up, I met the terrified gaze of a man. I felt the blood rush through my veins. He clearly wasn't supposed to see us. Realizing that, he tried to run, and without thinking, I chased him. "Tay, let him go," my brother mentally pleaded. "He's drunk. No one will believe him, and by morning, he won't remember anything." I couldn't take that risk. With a sharp tug, I sank my teeth into his neck, and when his body went limp, I let him go and returned to my brother. "Theo, what have you done? We can't do this to everyone." "We're doing this for our secret," I replied. "You're the alpha, you have to think about the pack. Maybe I'm inexperienced, but I have a heart. That man had a family. I don't care," I responded, turning and heading into the forest. I didn't want to think about taking someone's life, but protecting the secret was more important. After lunch, while my brother dealt with pack matters, I wasted time, not knowing what to do. Boredom wrapped around me like a suffocating whirlpool, not giving me a break. Trying to shake it off, I went for a run to stretch my legs and walk off the beast inside me. Here, by the river, I often thought about life, wondering what kind of alpha I would be and whether I would live up to my father's expectations. Now I realize I didn't live up to them. I let him down by refusing the alpha status he left to me as his firstborn. My brother didn't want to take on that burden, but since I refused, he became the leader as the youngest son of Roderick Fane. "Theo, I need your help," Liam wrote to me. "Sometimes this mental connection among wolves just drives me crazy. It doesn't turn off like a phone, and you're always in touch, almost anywhere." "Anything, brother," I replied, feeling that his request was hiding something more. "Pick Dana up from college. I promised to be there at 3, but it's not working out. Can you do it?" I didn't even know if I could be of support after betraying my pair and destroying everything. I had completely given up. I'd been an idiot. It wouldn't happen again. "Okay, I'll pick up your Dana," I said, clenching my teeth. "But tell her not to make it awkward." Remembering her late-night visit to my room, I smirked, but the amusement quickly turned into a flash of anger. I clenched my fists, taking a deep and heavy breath. The wolf inside me stirred as soon as I remembered touching her velvet skin, how I wanted to steal her kiss, push her against the wall, and quench my desires. The craving was overwhelming. I wanted to control her movements, catch every one of her moans. The vivid image flashed again in my mind, and it became tight in my pants.
Damn.
There's something wrong with me, and I don't like it. Not knowing what to do with these strange desires, I got up, dressed, and headed to the settlement. I pulled my father's black pickup out of the garage and drove into the city. On the way, I received a message with the address of the college from my brother. I didn't want to face Dana after everything that had happened, but I gave my word. Stopping near the college, I parked the car a little farther from the entrance, where there were fewer people, and waited. That's when I felt the familiar scent of her perfume. A shiver ran down my skin, and my stomach tightened pleasantly. I glanced in the rearview mirror and saw Dana. She was standing next to some dark-haired guy, holding notebooks and laughing. Something in her laugh set me off. I gritted my teeth and gripped the steering wheel so hard, it almost turned to dust. The wolf inside me growled, ordering me to take what was mine. And to my surprise, I agreed with him. I got out of the car and headed towards her quickly. When she saw me, she dropped her notebooks, her face immediately darkened, and her smile vanished. I froze, shoved my hand in my pockets, and slightly tilted my head. I wanted to paralyze her with a look. Dana's guy began collecting the notebooks while she stood still, not breaking her gaze from me. I could feel her heart racing and her body filled with anxiety.
Did you order a taxi?
I asked, observing her reaction. "What are you doing here?" she asked, clearing her throat. "Liam is busy. I'm here for him," I replied shortly, looking at her and the guy. "I'm not going with you," she said cautiously, taking a step back. "No one's asking you," I said emotionlessly. "You're getting in the car and we're going home." I didn't even know what was happening with me, but I somehow said home. Before, I didn't like the idea of the girl living with us, but now what's happening to me? What if I don't? Her words were clearly a challenge, and she played with fire. Ignoring her, I approached, grabbed her hand, and led her behind me. "I don't have time for games. We're going home." "Hey, man, did you hear what she said?"
Came a voice from behind.
"Dana doesn't want to go with you." I took this as a challenge. Turning around, I locked eyes with the guy and asked, "Are you talking to me?" He sensed he had messed with the wrong person and shrank back, dropping his fists. I could overpower even my alpha brother with my authority, so what was I supposed to do with this kid? I approached Dana and extended my hand, but she, glaring at me, refused. "What?" I said, "I'm not going with you." She snapped decisively. I'll get there myself. I'm not a child. And don't do me any favors. Neither for me nor Liam. I could barely hold myself back, trying not to let my anger loose. I almost snapped. How dare she defy me? I barely had the strength to not tear her apart. I clenched my fist. Suit yourself, I said indifferently, shrugging. If she doesn't want to, that's her problem. I'm not going to beg her. I drove to the pack, but on the way, I stopped at a bar to cool off. At home, it was empty. Liam and Dana were gone. They were probably together somewhere. My mind started to boil at the mere thought of them being together. I tried to convince myself I didn't care about their relationship, but the black rage took over. I rushed out of the house, headed to the forgotten place, stopped at the one-story wooden house with a light on in the window, and entered without knocking. Lotta! I growled her name, following her scent. Before meeting Alice, I was having fun with this girl. We were simply exchanging what each of us needed, nothing more. I had to forget about Dana for a moment, her whiny admirer, and her brother, who also had feelings for her. I was lying in my room on the bed when the door suddenly burst open. Where's Dana? Liam's voice, deep and menacing, interrupted my thoughts. I don't know. I'm not her nanny. She refused to go with me. I didn't insist, I replied, trying to stay calm. Are you an idiot? Liam exploded, standing over me. What if something happened to her? Why did you leave her alone? Oh, come on. Nothing will happen to her, I said, getting up and sitting opposite him. Judging by how your Dana was flirting with her classmate, she probably stayed over at his place. So forget about her. I said it and immediately regretted it. Anger flared in my chest, and everything before my eyes blurred. My thoughts were becoming darker and more twisted. She would have called me, Liam said, staring at me thoughtfully. Are you sure? I said, trying to hide the rage building inside me. A few hours later, when it got dark and Dana still hadn't returned, I started to worry myself. Chapter 7. Dana. Due to the recent unpleasant events, I had neglected my studies, but now my life seemed to be getting back on track. I wasn't planning to quit college because my mom really wanted me to become a veterinarian. So, in the morning, I went to class, hoping to catch up on what I had missed. I was happy to meet my friends and classmates, whom I hadn't seen for a while. They seemed just as glad to see me return, especially Roma. He kept glancing back at me during the lessons, smiling. I caught his looks and responded with a smile. It seemed he had liked me since the first time he saw me in the group. The girls always talked about it. Roma was, of course, handsome, tall, dark-haired, with a tan. He had something mysterious about him. I was drawn to him, but at the same time, something pushed me away. I would be a good friend to him, but nothing more. After classes, Roma offered to walk me home. But should he know that I live in a house with two gorgeous men? They're supposed to pick me up. I smiled and noticed how disappointed he looked. Fine. Maybe next time. When we left the college and stopped to say goodbye, Roma made a joke. I laughed and Theo appeared in front of us. I was shocked. I thought it was a mirage, but no. Did you call a taxi? He smirked. That's when I realized that Theo was really here. My throat went dry, but I managed to ask, "What are you doing here?" Theo explained that Liam couldn't come, so he sent him instead. But I didn't want to go with him. I was afraid to be alone with Theo. In the car. So close. These thoughts made my heart race. I'm not going with you, I said, stepping back a step. He was too aggressive and persistent, but I wasn't going to give in. I said I'm not going. I'll get there on my own. I'm not a child. No need to do me any favors. I'll get there on my own. Yeah, right. I managed to reach the forest, but I couldn't find the way to the village. I got lost. I was angry with myself. Now I had to figure out what to do. I took out my phone, but the battery was dead. After several failed attempts to call Liam, I finally got through. "Liam, I'm lost in the forest. Can you hear me?"
I was worried he hadn't heard me.
But before I could finish, the connection cut off. I had no strength left, and I kept searching for a way out. But the forest was just a forest, and the phones didn't work. Damn it. I pulled the phone away from my ear and looked at its dark screen, which refused to come to life. Well, hello, Murphy's Law. I bitterly smiled, stuffed it in my jacket pocket, and looked around. I tried to figure out where I was. All I could see was forest, dry leaves rustling under my feet, and nothing else. Panic began to creep in, but I forced myself to stay calm. The last thing I needed was to give in to despair and get even more lost. Taking a few deep breaths, I tried to convince myself that Liam would definitely start looking for me, and he would find me. The only question was whether he had heard my words. The thought of spending more time in the forest frightened me. I didn't even know what other animals besides wolves could be here. I don't know how long I had been wandering through the forest, trying to find a way out. An hour? 2? It was starting to get dark. I was tired, and when I stumbled onto a small clearing covered with dry leaves, I decided I had had enough. I crouched down, holding my bag against my chest, and couldn't stop the tears, feeling utterly helpless. Suddenly, I heard a strange sound, like laughter, which made me jump up and look around. I tensed up and peered into the surroundings. Strange creatures crawled out from behind the bushes on both sides, either dogs or wolves. But they were too big and filthy to be anything familiar. There were 3 of them. They moved toward me slowly, obviously wary. I heard sounds behind me and quickly turned around. There were 3 more. I was surrounded by hyenas? Hyenas. This can't be. We're not in the desert. Where did they come from? But their eerie laughter, which sounded like cackling, was so distinct, there was no doubt. These were hyenas. I had never seen them, but I assumed they should be no bigger than a shepherd dog. But these animals were twice as big as a husky. A cold terror gripped me. My heart dropped into my stomach. I felt a wave of despair wash over me, a horror from the hopelessness of the situation. Standing still, afraid to move, I thought that if I did, they would attack. But something told me I needed to do something different. These creatures were cowardly, and if I showed them I was a threat, maybe they would be scared. I picked up a stone from the ground and threw it at them. The hyenas jumped back, but then immediately returned, continuing to advance. They surrounded me like wild beasts. In a panic, I swung my bag, spinning in place, not knowing from which side the attack would come. One hyena lunged at me and grabbed my arm. Fortunately, the sleeve of my jacket held up, and then I heard that wild laughter again. In my panic, I missed the moment when the whole pack attacked me at once, and I found myself on the ground. Instinctively, I shielded my face with my bag, pulling my legs to my stomach. Their sharp teeth pierced my clothes and cut my skin. I fought back as best I could, but soon my strength failed me. Pain, screams, and the feeling of utter hopelessness. I knew there was no salvation, that this was the end. Suddenly, a growl echoed, and the hyenas retreated. Their laughter was now distant. My heart pounded like crazy. My whole body trembled from fear and pain. But I managed to gather enough strength to remove the bag from my face and see my savior. I gasped when I realized who it was. Just a few meters away stood a huge dark gray wolf, and his grin seemed familiar. Strange, but I didn't feel any fear being so close to the predator. Even as he began to approach me, I didn't flinch. The wolf came closer and sniffed me, as if checking how much the hyenas had hurt me. I tried to get up, but the pain made me collapse, and I groaned. The creature backed off. I watched as its body transformed. Its paws turned into human hands and legs. Its face became human. Holding my breath, I watched this muscular man, and realized I knew him. "Theo," I whispered, almost losing consciousness. I couldn't believe my eyes. It was him, Theo. He lifted me in his arms and carried me somewhere. I didn't care where, as long as it was far away from here. I closed my eyes and snuggled against his warm chest. Everything became clear. That's when I understood why Liam had been so hot when he carried me into the house. Animals have a much higher body temperature than humans. And many things started to make sense. For example, the wolf in my room. It was Theo. A warmth spread through me, like being in the embrace of strong arms. Theo. He would protect me. I groaned as the pain pierced my shoulder again. "Hang on, we're almost there," he said calmly, then added angrily, "What the hell? Why didn't you come with me? What if I hadn't made it in time?" His voice was full of indignation. "Don't you care?" I asked, barely moving my lips. "No, I don't care," he replied sharply. "I don't want you to die because of your stupidity. We're almost there. They'll help you." Suddenly, my head spun. Bright spots danced before my eyes, and everything turned dark. I woke up to Thea shouting. "Those cowardly bastards attacked her," he said angrily. "Damn hyenas. If it were me, I'd have gone into their caves and made their lives a living hell. Not only did they dare to cross into our territory, but they almost killed Dana." I struggled to open my eyes, my whole body aching. Theo was pacing the room, not knowing where to channel his anger. Liam stood by the wall, arms crossed. Both turned when they heard me stir. The younger one immediately approached me, while the older one stood still, clenching his lips. "The doctor will be here soon," Liam said. "He'll help you. Everything will be fine, beautiful." He winked at me and stroked my hair, a faint sad smile on his lips. Theo remained silent, occasionally glancing at me, and when our eyes met, he immediately turned away. A middle-aged man with a medical kit entered the room. "What happened to her?" he asked. "Hyenas. Those bastards almost killed her." "Tauspat Angeli." "I see. Get out, both of you," the doctor barked. "Now." The brothers left the room immediately. The doctor examined my wounds for a few minutes, then gave me painkillers and began treating the bites. I tried to endure as best as I could. The pills dulled the pain a bit, but the process was still excruciating. There are several deep bites. I'll need to stitch them up. Don't worry, you'll hardly feel any pain thanks to the pills. Tomorrow I'll prepare some ointment to help the wounds heal faster. Are you ready? I sighed, trying to gather my strength, and nodded, letting the doctor begin. I squeezed my eyes shut, unable to watch it. But as promised, it all went well. The painkillers helped, and now I was lying in bed with my arms and legs bandaged, waiting for Theo to come through the door. But when only Liam appeared in the doorway, I felt disappointment. It was such a letdown, like he wasn't even interested in how I was feeling. Why save me only to forget about me afterward? Why not leave me there, to be torn apart by the hyenas? I didn't know what to say or how to behave. I just lay there, silently, staring at an invisible spot on the ceiling. "How are you?" Liam asked cautiously, stepping closer. "I'm fine," I replied indifferently, avoiding his gaze. An awkward silence hung between us. "Don't you want to say something to me?" he insisted. "Don't you have any questions?" It felt like a cold splash of water to the face. I didn't know how to start a conversation like that. "I don't know what to say," I confessed honestly. "I found out something I didn't believe, and now I don't know how to live with it. You need time." "I understand. When you're ready, we'll talk. Okay?" I nodded, but still couldn't bring myself to look at Liam. Chapter 8. Tao. I paced the spacious living room, feeling the tension build up inside. My nerves were stretched to the limit. My body felt like a coiled spring, ready to snap at any moment. My teeth were clenched. My fists were so tight that the knuckles had turned white. "Doesn't it even matter to you?" Donna's words kept spinning in my head, not letting me rest. For hours, each memory of that moment only added fuel to the fire. I could clearly feel her pressing against me while I carried her wounded body through the night. How her weak fingers had clung to my shirt, gripping for life. Damn it, those bastards almost killed her. If I had been even a second too late.
Damn.
Just thinking about it was unbearable. I let out a harsh breath, but the anger didn't fade. At that moment, the lock on the front door clicked, and I immediately tensed. Richard was done. I intercepted him at the door and asked sharply, "How did it go?" "Relax, Shell Live," he said with a smirk, patting me on the shoulder. I bared my teeth, growled, and shrugged off his hand. "You can go see her," he added, but I immediately shook my head, stepping back like I was avoiding fire.
No. No?
Richard's voice held genuine surprise. "I thought you. You don't need to think, just your job." I snapped, losing my temper. Richard shrugged and left, leaving me alone with my thoughts, which made me want to howl. What was I really afraid of? Hearing what I didn't want to admit? That it mattered to me? The wolf inside growled, demanding freedom. It wanted to run to her room. It wanted to bury its nose in her hair, inhale its scent, make sure she was okay. I shook my head sharply.
No.
Not what I'm thinking about. Liam's appearance in the living room was expected. He calmly sat down in the armchair, crossed his legs, and looked at me intently. "What?" I threw out. "Now Dana knows about us," he said softly. "Do you condemn me?" She was bleeding out, "Liam. I had no choice." "I don't condemn you. You did the right thing." His voice was steady, calm.
Too calm.
I stared at him closely. This kid, he had changed. He was different. More confident, more thoughtful. What happened to him? Something told me the reason had to do with Dana. I frowned. "Have you talked to her?"
Yes.
"She's confused, but it'll pass in time. When she's ready, I'll tell her everything. You want to leave things as they are." I snapped. "You're really going to tell her the whole truth? What else is there? She's already seen it all. Let's say it was a hallucination. We'll blame it on shock, hallucinations. We'll convince her that it wasn't hyenas but wolves." I started pacing the room, trying to prove my point. She'll believe it. She has to believe it. Liam slowly shook his head. "We're not going to make anything up. When Dana is ready, I'll tell her everything myself. This isn't up for discussion." I clenched my jaw, glaring at him with fury. Why was he being so stubborn? What if he wasn't thinking straight? "Don't regret it," I hissed, and, unable to hold back, I stormed out of the house like an arrow shot from a catapult. My feet carried me to Lotta's house. I burst inside without knocking, growling her name as I stepped over the threshold. She appeared before me at once, smirking as if she had been waiting for me. Lotta was stunning. A short skirt, a revealing top, the seductive curve of her hip. I pulled her to me, greedily kissing her lips. She moaned in response, clinging to my shoulders. I needed to forget. I needed to tear Dana out of my mind. But when I opened my eyes, I didn't see Lotta. I saw Dana. My heart dropped. I recoiled as if I had been punched in the chest. "What's wrong?" Her voice was hoarse, foggy. "Nothing." I cut her off sharply. Her empty chatter always irritated me. I turned her around, facing away from me. She obediently arched her back, offering her body to me. My hands naturally settled on her waist, but in that moment, as I almost lost control, I was struck by the realization. I didn't want her. I wanted Dana. I jerked away with rage, fists clenched, and slammed them into the walls so hard that the plaster crumbled onto the floor. "What the hell?" Lotta gasped in shock. "Nothing." I snapped back, feeling the desire fade. "You don't excite me anymore." "What?" Her eyes widened and her face twisted in fury. Go to hell. She shoved me towards the door, throwing me outside with all her strength. Get lost, and don't come back. I smirked. I stripped off my clothes, turned into a wolf, and bolted into the forest. I ran until I reached the river. Howling at the moon, I let the beast inside me release its despair. A pack answered my cry, but I didn't care. When I returned home, it was already past midnight. I stopped at the door of my room and froze. Behind the wall, in Dana's room, I heard her steady breathing. Without thinking, I opened the door and silently stepped inside. I froze in front of her bed, just looking. "What are you doing to me?" I whispered softly, afraid of breaking the silence. She was sleeping, her face so peaceful that my chest tightened with uninvited tenderness. I couldn't tear my gaze away, catching myself on the insane desire to touch her cheek, run my fingertips over her velvet skin, gently, almost weightlessly, so I wouldn't wake her. But I couldn't. The only thing I allowed myself was to inhale her scent, filling my lungs with it, letting that feeling sink deep into my soul. The wolf inside me growled contentedly, sensing the presence of the one I had claimed as mine. But I silenced him. I took a deep breath, suppressing the call of instincts, and silently left the room, leaving her in the embrace of the night. Chapter 9. Only 4 days have passed, and my wounds have already healed at an astonishing speed. Just as the doctor promised, the skin was rapidly restoring its integrity, leaving only pale, uneven scars on my arms and legs. No matter how much healing herbs were packed into the ointment, it could truly be called miraculous. During all this time, I barely left my room. Everything I needed was here: a bathroom, a toilet, and the ability to be alone. I only went to the kitchen in those rare moments when the brothers were absent, quickly grabbed food, and returned like a shadow gliding through the house. Liam understood my state. He didn't try to corner me, didn't demand explanations, and didn't pressure me. I was grateful for that. But one day, I realized this couldn't go on. I was living in a stranger's house, among people I knew too little about. Who were they? What were they? Hiding from reality wouldn't change anything. I was like an ostrich, hiding my head in the sand, hoping it would protect me from danger. But it wasn't true. It was self-deception. That morning, pushing myself, I went downstairs to the kitchen. Liam stood by the window, thoughtfully gazing out at the landscape. I stepped forward, and he immediately turned as if he felt my presence. The corners of his mouth twitched into a warm smile. "Tell me about werewolves," I said, hesitating, feeling a growing nervousness inside me. I expected mockery, a disbelieving chuckle, anything like, "Are you serious, girl? Werewolves?" But Liam simply nodded, gesturing for me to sit at the table. He sat down opposite me, arms crossed. "This house," he began calmly, "it's not just a house. It's a den. A pack lives here. And I'm their alpha, the leader." "Leader?" I asked, frowning skeptically. "But you're so young." "It just happened," he replied briefly, without going into details. I nodded, processing what I had just heard. Dozens of questions swarmed in my head, but one tumbled out faster than the rest. Well, I took a deep breath, gathering my courage. "I want to see your wolf." Liam's eyes widened. He clearly hadn't expected this turn of events. But, to my surprise, he didn't refuse. "Close your eyes," he asked, "and don't peek." I frowned, skeptical, but obeyed, closing my eyes tightly. My heart raced, filling my chest with the weight of anticipation. I couldn't call it anything but a miracle, seeing a person transform into a beast. The soft crack of bones brought a strange feeling, a mix of fear and awe. I wanted to peek, but I held back. I had seen this in the forest when Theo, right before my eyes, turned back into a human. The memory sent a slight shiver through me. Silence. I opened my eyes and froze. Before me stood not Liam. Before me sat a dark gray wolf, its eyes still watching me, but now reflecting the mind of the beast. Something warm, both frightening and mesmerizing, tightened in my stomach. When he slowly stepped forward, I involuntarily pressed back into the chair. Liam? My voice trembled. The wolf tilted his head, and something human flickered in his eyes. I took a deep breath and cautiously extended my hand. The wolf didn't pull away. On the contrary, he tilted his head toward my palm, as if inviting me to touch him. My fingers sank into the soft, thick fur, and I caught my breath. It was so incredible. The pleasure of touching him made me smile, and I absent-mindedly scratched behind his ear. "Is it really you?" I asked almost in a whisper, although the answer was obvious. The wolf stepped back, and right before my eyes, his body began to change. The fur receded into his skin, his paws lengthened, his spine arched, and then Liam stood before me again, completely naked. I quickly averted my gaze, feeling the hot flush rise to my cheeks. Glancing quickly, I noticed a strong, muscular body, but fortunately, no embarrassing thoughts crossed my mind. I looked at him more like a brother than a man. Out of the corner of my eye, I saw him pull on his pants and t-shirt, and I was about to breathe a sigh of relief when Theo walked into the kitchen. "What's going on here?" His voice was harsh. I flinched, as if we'd been caught doing something forbidden. I introduced Dana to my other self, Liam said cheerfully. "And you think that's funny?" Theo crossed his arms over his chest, his brow raised in question. "Do you even realize that you've put her at risk? You should have done as I told you. Your recklessness could cost her her life." "Messing with her head like you?" Liam scoffed. "If it weren't for me, she'd already be torn apart." Have you ever wondered why so many people disappear without a trace? These things leave no evidence. They devour their victims down to the last bone. I froze. A cold shiver ran down my spine. "Hyenas," I whispered quietly, finally realizing what I was about to face. "Then why did they attack me? Do I look like a corpse?" My voice was thick with sarcasm, but inside, irritation was boiling. Theo gave me a heavy look, something grim and barely perceptible flickering in his eyes. "They sensed your despair," he said, his voice even but wary. "You didn't fight for your life." He frowned as if debating whether to continue, but apparently decided against it. "Enough talk. You already know more than you should. Watch yourself. Keep your tongue behind your teeth, or I'll finish what the hyenas didn't." His words were calm, but there was an unmistakable hint of threat in them. I stared at his face, hoping to catch some hint of a joke, but no. Theo was serious. His cold, ruthless gaze seemed to burn through me, and the air became heavy with tension. Could he really do it? Kill me if necessary? His indifference stabbed at my heart. Something tightened inside, struggling to keep the painful lump at bay. Maybe I really should leave. The sooner, the better. It was too hard to be near him and not be able to touch his skin, feel the heat of his breath, not allow myself to be tempted by looking at his lips that drove me mad. Theo was like a wild animal. Wild, unpredictable, dangerous. And every time he turned away from me, I felt as if I was burned by his coldness. Gathering my strength, I said, "I've decided to go back to the city. Tomorrow morning. Thank you for everything." My voice betrayed me, trembling, and without waiting for a response, I quickly turned around. My lips pressed into a thin line, and hot tears rolled down my cheeks. My body trembled, and an overwhelming emptiness spread inside, as if something important had been ripped from me. Running to my room, I collapsed onto the bed, curling up and clutching the pillow. Deep down, A foolish hope still lingered, that Theo wouldn't let me go, that he would come, stop me, grab my hand, pull me close, and finally say everything he had been hiding. But time passed. The night lights shimmered outside the window, and the door to my room remained closed. What a fool I am. I imagined who knows what. I should have left without a word. Sighing heavily, I got up and went to the bathroom. The hot water washed away the tension, but the thoughts didn't disappear. Theo, his gaze, his voice, his everything. It was as if he had permeated every cell of my consciousness. When I came out, wrapped in a towel, I suddenly remembered that I hadn't done the depilation. Sighing, I dried my hair, changed into underwear, and returned to the bathroom, this time locking the door. As I shaved my legs, one thought kept spinning in my mind. How will I live without Theo? Will I be able to? My hand trembled, and the razor slipped. I gasped, feeling a sharp pain, and cursed when I saw the crimson stream running down my leg. Throwing the bloody razor into the sink, I turned toward the door, about to leave, but I didn't even manage to reach for the handle. There was a crash. The door flew off its hinges and slammed against the wall. In the doorway stood Theo, ruffled, tense, his chest heaving, and his dark gaze hungrily scanning my half-naked body. I panicked, pressing my hands to my chest, realizing how absurd it was. "Are you out of your mind?" I blurted, feeling my heart pound. "Why did you break down the door?" "You screamed." His voice was low, hoarse. "So what? If I screamed from an orgasm, would you have burst into the room to save me from a wave of pleasure?" I snapped, feeling my anger mix with confusion.
Taufa.
His brows slowly rose. "Excuse me?" he asked doubtfully, arching an eyebrow and staring at me, making my body literally melt from the heat of his gaze. I gasped. Something hot and burning tightened in my chest, like the anticipation of a storm. Goosebumps ran across my skin, and a sweet, anxious warmth spread in my lower abdomen. I just cut myself," I muttered, glancing at him in a daze. "If you can't handle a razor, don't pick it up," he retorted. Then, without letting me collect my thoughts, he scooped me up into his arms. I gasped, wrapping my arms around his neck, staring helplessly at his face. His hands held me tightly, confidently, and the warmth from them instantly scrambled all my thoughts. My chest rose slowly, my breath quickened, and my heart felt like it was about to burst out. This is the last time. Tomorrow I'll leave. Theo carefully set me on the bed and turned sharply. For a moment, I thought he would just leave, but within half a minute, he returned, holding a bottle of hydrogen peroxide and cotton pads. Without saying a word, he knelt in front of me, soaked a pad in the solution, and gently touched the wound. I shuddered, tilting my head back. One of his hands firmly held my leg, while the other gently treated the cut. There wasn't a trace of tenderness in this, only restrained care. And everything would have been fine, but my body betrayed me with its reaction to his touch. A soft, anxious wave of warmth spread in my lower abdomen, so sweet, so terrifying.
Oh.
I held my breath, watching Theos' smooth, almost slow-motion movements. Every gesture of his mesmerized, hypnotized, as if he were weaving invisible webs around me. I liked watching him, feeling his care, catching the warmth radiating from him. But suddenly, that cocoon of tenderness surrounding me crumbled to dust, like an illusion swept away by a gust of wind. "Don't play with dangerous objects in the future," Theo cut in, standing up. His voice carried steel, as if care had instantly turned into icy detachment. "If you don't know how to handle them, don't touch them. Get up.
You need to get dressed."
He extended his hand, and after a moment of hesitation, I placed mine in his. His hand was large, warm, strong. Theo pulled me toward him, and I immediately found myself in his arms. The heat of his body enveloped me, and the touch of his fingers on my lower back made a shiver run through my skin. I lifted my gaze, meeting his eyes. There was something dangerous, dark, and alluring hidden in them. His scent spun my head, intoxicated, attracted like ancient magic. I struggled to suppress the urge to press closer to him, to inhale deeper, to dissolve in this fascination. Damn, what is he doing to me? The paws stretched out. I made a tentative attempt to free myself, but his grip only tightened. I struggled again in vain. He wouldn't let go. I could feel protest rising from deep within me, but along with it, another feeling ignited. Desire cut through my restraint like a sharp blade, spreading across my body in sweet fire. I needed to break free, but I wanted to stay even more. What is he doing? No. Why is he doing this? And in the next second, he covered my lips with his. Greedily, authoritatively, ruthlessly. Time stopped. The ground disappeared from under my feet, and my heart, pausing for a moment, raced into a wild gallop. His hot fingers slid across my body, burning marks into my skin, and his tongue invaded my mouth, demanding submission. I moaned, weakening under the pressure of his passion, instinctively leaning in closer. I wanted more. I wanted to lose myself in this moment, in him, in his arms. When his hand gripped my backside, I sharply inhaled, and he just let out a pleased growl. Clutching his hard, stone-like shoulders, I felt everything inside me tighten in anticipation. But suddenly, he released his hold. He pulled back, simply left me standing, burning, with flushed skin and ragged breaths. I blinked, trying to comprehend what had just happened. How could he lead me to the edge and then leave me burning in this fire alone? Breathing heavily, I sank onto the bed, staring at the door through which he had disappeared. Everything in me screamed to run after him, demand more, beg him not to leave me like this. I would have done anything just to feel his lips, his hands, his heat again. But, barely catching my breath, I felt the passion give way to anger. I clenched my teeth, my fists balling on their own. I'll show you, you nasty wolf, I hissed, narrowing my eyes. Let's see how long you can keep this up. I never understood why he fought so stubbornly against what was inevitable between us. But I knew one thing. This was not the end. Chapter 10. The sun, tired from the day's heat, was almost hidden behind the horizon, and the forest shadows began to cover the land, swallowing the light. I had been running among the ancient trees in the form of a wolf for a long time, trying to find answers to the questions that wouldn't let me rest. What's wrong with me? When did this damn mess start? Why do I lose my mind when I'm near Dana? How can I fix all this? I can't be the one who wants her when my brother is madly in love with her. I slowed down and growled angrily. What an idiot I am. What a mess I'm in. But I'll get through this. I'll definitely find a way out. A walk in the forest, despite all the confusion in my head, helped me calm down a bit, but the image of Dana standing in front of me in half-naked form wouldn't leave me. It stood before my eyes, like a still frame in a movie, where everything stopped. I could still feel how I jumped out of bed when I heard her scream. Without thinking, I rushed to help. I broke into her room and kicked down the bathroom door, where water was running, and she was standing there, in her underwear, with a razor in her hand, and blood was oozing from her leg. "Are you out of your mind?" She almost screamed, looking at me in shock. "Why did you break the door?" "You were screaming," I replied, trying to stay calm, but inside I was boiling. I needed to help her, but I couldn't take my eyes off her body. It was so tempting, pulling me in, and I felt the greed building up. And so what? If I had been screaming from an orgasm, would you have broken into the room to save me from pleasure? She shook me with that question. What? I blurted out, unable to comprehend her. My pants were tight, and I felt an unbearable pressure. Everything inside me was on fire, and I couldn't stop myself. I wanted to take her right then and there. I just cut myself, she whispered. If you don't know how to use a razor, don't pick it up, I said angrily, looking at her bloodied leg. Without asking for permission, I lifted her in my arms and carried her to the room, feeling her warm body press against my desire. I could hear her breathing becoming erratic, and I could feel her chest rise and fall in rhythm with her heartbeat. My pulse was racing wildly, and I felt how she merged with my heart. I treated the cut, trying not to cause pain. I gently moved the cotton pad over her wound, but each of her breaths made me lose control. When she almost gasped in pain, I struggled to hold myself together. Only sheer willpower kept me from losing it, though at that moment, I wanted to do the unthinkable. Oh, how hard it was. I forced myself to stay composed, but she kept affecting me. My thoughts tangled, and I struggled to handle reality. At some point, I blurted something harsh, trying to hide my internal storm, and stood up. My gaze slid over her body, and I almost didn't notice how my erection tightened, hoping she wouldn't notice. Her touch was like a lightning strike. I couldn't take it anymore and sharply pulled her to me. The wolf inside me awoke, and I felt the wild force of desire fill me. I pressed her against me, no longer caring if she noticed how aroused I was. Let it be clear, her face turned red, but she met my gaze with confidence. The smell of her body, the smell of desire, it drove me insane, pulling me into a storm, clouding everything around. I could no longer hold back. I wanted to tear her lace apart, so she would be entirely mine. I could feel her arousal, and it only fueled the fire inside me. I lost the last remnants of control. My hands slid over her body, exploring every curve. I didn't think about what was right or wrong. My lips found hers, and I devoured her with a kiss, noticing nothing but her. The wolf inside me won, and I was ready to claim her as mine when suddenly, I felt a poisonous arrow pierce my mind, and I returned to reality. I stood there, unable to believe I was about to do this. Betrayal. But I couldn't be such an asshole to violate all the principles in the house my brother and I shared and sleep with the girl he liked. Holding myself back, I pushed Dana away and headed for the door. Who would have thought it would be so hard for me to walk away from a body I so desperately wanted? It was agonizing. The only thought running through my head was leave, to preserve what was between us. The walk led me to a familiar place, but returning was nothing like I expected. The moon, almost hidden behind the clouds, barely illuminated the ground, but I was on edge. Then suddenly I sensed a smell. It was strange, pleasant, familiar, yet at the same time unsettling, almost repelling. My inner wolf immediately went on alert, but then froze, as if waiting for instructions. I headed toward the house, unable to ignore the scent that was drawing me in. Everything around felt wrong. Why do I feel this aroma again? And most importantly, why did she come into our pack? So much time had passed, and the way here had been closed to her. But the smell, it couldn't be a trick. The wolf inside me growled, confirming my suspicions. The closer I got, the more furious the hatred became, clouding my mind. Adrenaline pulsed in my veins, and my whole being was ready to leap into a fight. Here's the house. I saw her, the dark-haired girl who was standing at the door, preparing to knock. My nose once again inhaled the air, checking if I was mistaken. It was her. Everything was confirmed. Why are you here? My voice was cold, and my arms were crossed indifferently over my chest. Alice turned around, her heart beating faster. and a strange smile appeared on her lips. Her eyes seemed innocent, but I could see how tense she was. The wolf inside me sensed her, but didn't explode. It was strange. So, everything was forgotten? Maybe that's for the best. She began hesitantly. Please forgive me for everything that happened. It's in the past. It doesn't matter. I've already forgotten about it. If you came only for that, you can leave. I pointed to the road, but she didn't move. Standing on the doorstep, she stared at me intently, her gaze full of despair and pity. I didn't want to see it, but I couldn't look away. Please, Theo, listen to me. Her words were full of pleading, and her hands were trembling. I stepped back, unwilling to close the distance. I wouldn't have come if things weren't so serious. I need shelter. Help me, Theo. Can't your father protect you? I raised an eyebrow mockingly. You picked the wrong guy. Please, let me stay for at least a few days. She ignored my words. Her hands continued to nervously fidget with her fingers, and I saw how she was barely holding back tears. Here? I snorted, surprised by her audacity. Are you out of your mind? I don't know where else to go. Who else can I ask for help? Help me, Theo. I beg you. Her voice almost cracked from fear, but it wasn't fear of me. If you ever loved me, help me. Please. She almost cried, throwing herself into my arms. The wolf inside my soul growled, demanding that I push her away, but I wasn't ready to accept her closeness. After going through so much, I felt nothing. And here, holding her in my arms, I realized no love, no hate, nothing. Silence. Emptiness. All that remained was endless exhaustion. Pushing Alice away from me, I said coldly, "Find somewhere else to stay. You won't find shelter here." At that moment, the door behind Alice quietly opened, and Liam stepped outside. "Theo, you can't be so indifferent to someone else's suffering," he said, his voice insistent. "If Alice needs help, she stays. We must support each other." "Thank you, Liam," she said, smiling and wiping tears from her face. I was filled with indignation for my brother's words, and I couldn't hold back, spilling everything I had inside. First, you brought one girl. Now you want to keep another. Is this a charity center for the poor? I snarled. If you've forgotten, I'm the alpha here, and only I decide who stays and who goes. Alice will stay as long as she needs to. End of story.
Well, well.
My brother decided to make himself a harem. And this girl, it turns out, is a great actress. I almost believed her performance, but I snapped out of it in time, unlike my simpleton brother. Let the girls wipe their feet on him for the rest of their lives. Whatever. It's his life, and I don't care. Fine, I muttered. You're the alpha, you know best, I said with clear sarcasm, and, heading into the house, purposely pushed Alice with my shoulder. On the porch, I turned around, pointed my finger at her, and said angrily, "Just don't come near me."
Got it?
Alice nodded, and I, snorting, went into the house. What the hell was this madness? Chapter 11. Dana. I couldn't fall asleep. I lay in bed, lost in thoughts, and kept going back to the moment when Theo kissed me. Now leaving would be much harder. Or maybe I should wait. What if everything changes between Theo and me? I was overwhelmed with doubts, not knowing what to do. I wanted to do everything right, not to make a mistake. Suddenly, I heard voices from the street. I got up from bed and went to the window, which overlooked the yard. Darkness hid the details, but the moonlight and the lights from the houses allowed me to make out the figures. It was Theo with a girl wearing black leggings and a dark gray sweater that hid her figure. I couldn't make out the words, but a shiver ran through me when the brunette threw herself into his arms. My heart squeezed. Tears silently rolled down my cheeks, and a sharp pain rose in my chest.
Why?
Why is he hugging her? when he was just with me? Where is the justice? Where is the logic in his actions? I stepped away from the window and returned to the warm bed, trying to forget and not think about it. But I couldn't. Now I was sure, tomorrow morning, I had to leave. But before that, I would make sure that Theo couldn't forget me. A plan formed in my mind. If he responded to my cry once, maybe it would work again. I deliberately smiled and, deciding to carry out my plan, grabbed a towel and headed for the shower. Leaving the door slightly ajar, I turned on the cold water to make the cry sound more believable. Gathering my strength, I poured the icy stream over myself. I screamed loudly, feeling the cold burn my skin, and froze for a few seconds, unable to breathe. But then, adjusting to the water, I allowed the warm streams to touch my face and chest. Theo will come in, and his gaze will be fixed on me. He won't be able to look away. He won't be able to leave. My heart was racing, and my body trembled with excitement. What am I doing? Am I out of my mind? What if it all goes wrong? I pushed away the pessimistic thoughts and applied shampoo to my palm, enjoying its scent. Slowly and carefully, I began rubbing it into my hair, feeling how the smell enveloped me, lulling me. Suddenly, the door creaked. Or was it just my imagination? I didn't hear his disapproval. That means he's there. He's watching. I imagined his eyes sparkling with desire, hoping that the sight of my bare back was driving him crazy. I continued to massage my scalp slowly, arching my back slightly, intentionally accentuating my curves. I imagined what he could see, but now I needed to finish. After rinsing out the shampoo, I squeezed my hair and, sure that Theo had left, climbed out of the bathroom. Wrapping myself in the towel, I turned towards the door and immediately screamed when I saw Theo in the doorway. His dark eyes were burning, and his gaze was full of passion. He didn't say a word but stood there, as if rooted to the spot, absorbing my scent. "What are you doing here?" I asked, trying to look helpless, holding the towel. He didn't answer. He stood silently, as if stunned. I continued to play my role, asking another question. "How long have you been standing here? Were you spying on me?" A chill ran through me at his gaze. My body shivered, and I felt heat settle in my stomach. He was so close that if he kissed me now, all my revenge would vanish in an instant. I wouldn't be able to resist, but I shouldn't. No, I shouldn't kiss him. However, Theo didn't seem to doubt. He pulled me to him with one hand and, not giving me a chance to pull away, buried his nose in my neck. The hairs on my body stood up as he inhaled my scent. "What are you doing?" I whispered, feeling his lips carefully brushing my skin. Theo didn't answer. He continued kissing me, his kisses hot as fire. I felt my strength melt under his touch, but realizing that this was wrong, I tried to rid myself of this attraction. But he wasn't going to stop. His hand wrapped around my waist, and I found myself pressed against his body. "What are you doing? Let go of me. Theo, let go." I tried to protest, but my words drowned in his kisses. My indignation disappeared instantly when his kiss engulfed me. Hungry, passionate, burning, it ignited a fire inside me in return. But I have to stop. Immediately, gathering all my will, I pulled away, denying myself those longed-for lips. "What's wrong?" A low growl escaped from his chest, and Theo's eyes sparkled like a threat. He was heated, as if ready to kill. Of course, I ruined the moment for him. "What's wrong?" I exclaimed, unable to hide my irritation. "You came into my room without knocking. You barged into the bathroom while I was showering. You jumped on me, and now you're asking what's wrong." "I jumped on you." Theo raised his eyebrows in surprise. "And didn't you know you should close the door when you take a shower?" "Actually, this room is mine, and I do what I want here," I replied, not planning to give in. If I want, I don't close the door. If I want, I walk around naked. Oh, now I really wanted to punish myself for those words. Why did I say them? But Theo's gaze, full of irritation, slowly began to change. A restless fire flared in his amber eyes, and his hands pulled me back to him. I gasped. My breath caught when I was caught in his gaze. He was so strong, so confident, and it felt like I couldn't pull away from him. You know what I think about when you look at me like that? The question caught me off guard, sending my nerves into a frenzy. My cheeks burned and my body tensed. And what is that? I barely whispered, trying to hide my excitement. How I slowly take the towel off you and start exploring your body with my lips. He touched my shoulder, and a pleasant shiver ran down my skin. I swallowed and turned away. My lips were dry, and I nervously licked them, trying to catch my breath, but my breathing still faltered. You knew I'd come, even without closing the door, Theo continued. You knew I'd be right here. Each of his words seemed to read my mind. That's it, my plan was ruined. Who, after everything that happened, would forget what's been going on here?
I didn't know anything.
I replied irritably, looking at him. And, by the way, isn't it time for you to go to bed? I tried to push him away, but he blocked the exit, standing in the doorway. His arms were crossed over his chest, and his gaze, oh, that gaze. To bed, you say? His voice became soft but ominous. So, it's an invitation. Go to hell. I said those words to him with hurt. Move, let me pass. But Theo just shook his head. I'll scream.
Ah, yes.
I forgot about your little brother. So that's who you left the door open for. Well, I won't disturb you. Good luck, go ahead and roll around there. But if you change your mind, you know where to find me. His last phrase was full of smugness as he finally stepped aside. I stood there, watching him leave. Tears welled up in my eyes. His words hurt, leaving a sting. Sitting on the edge of the bathtub, I tried to calm myself, not allowing myself to break down, but treacherous tears still rolled down my cheeks. When I left Dana's room, I had no desire to return to mine. An indescribable excitement overwhelmed me, and thoughts of her body wouldn't let me rest. The image I had just seen spun in my mind like a film reel. I went outside and sat on the porch, leaning my elbows on my knees and running my fingers through my hair. The night was incredibly soothing, as if the silence itself was calming the chaos inside me. Fragments of memories flickered in my mind. I heard Dana's scream and rushed to check what that clumsy girl had done now. But as soon as I stepped over the threshold of her room, I froze. Something paralyzed me. The bathroom door was slightly ajar, and I unintentionally became a witness. She was standing so close that I only had to take a step forward. My eyes couldn't look away from her perfect form, from the curves that simply called out to me. Her stunning figure made my stomach tighten, and my groin throbbed with tension. Passionate excitement overtook me. I stood there, forgetting everything, savoring the sight of her body. My thoughts tangled. Should I approach and take her in my arms or walk away? Unable to decide, I took a step forward. I shook my head, trying to push away these troubling thoughts. I knew I was losing control again, and that would lead to nothing good. Enough thinking about this. I was about to stand up and head to the bedroom when suddenly the door opened, and Dana walked out of the house. She passed by slowly, not even glancing at me. Did she get offended? Or maybe she just didn't notice. But where was she going at this time of night? And why was she wearing such a revealing pajama and barefoot? Curiosity burned within me, and I could feel the beast inside getting alert. Jealousy pierced through me, and it seemed like it was growling silently, urging me to follow her. I walked behind her, turning the most incredible thoughts in my mind. One idea wouldn't let me go. I hoped she wasn't going to meet someone from the pack. The thought filled me with rage. If I see him, I'll kill him. I barely suppressed a growl, but I calmed myself just in time. Carefully and quietly, I continued following her until I noticed her stepping into the icy river.
Hey,
"What are you thinking?" I shouted, stepping closer. Dana didn't turn around. No reaction. Is she ignoring me? I kept staring at her in confusion until I saw her submerge into the river up to her neck. Damn it! I couldn't wait until the current took her away. Without thinking, I rushed into the water and pulled her to the shore. Her eyes were like glass, just like when she appeared in my room. "What the hell are you doing, you idiot?" I yelled, unable to contain my anger. "Let's go home." Lifting Dana in my arms, I carefully carried her back to the settlement, feeling her lightness and helplessness. Once inside the room, I set her down on the floor and was about to leave when I met her gaze again, cold, indifferent, as if she couldn't care less about what was happening around her. Why was she silent, ignoring me as though I didn't even exist? I couldn't understand. I had no idea what to do. Maybe I should call Zoya to help change the girl into dry clothes? Or should I do it myself? "Why are you silent? Have you got nothing to say?" I said, feeling irritation start to build up. "Don't want to explain what that was?" "No." But Dana remained still, like a stone statue, unmoving, unblinking. She was clearly trying to drain every bit of emotion from me, deliberately provoking my anger. But I knew she wouldn't stay silent for long. "Well then, if you can't take care of yourself, I'll do it for you." My gaze fell on her soaked t-shirt. I swallowed hard, feeling my body react. A hot wave of desire stirred inside me, but I forced myself to look away. She's definitely playing with me, this bold little tease. Gathering my strength, I slowly pulled her t-shirt upward. Dana obediently raised her arms, letting me take it off. But she stared into the void, avoiding my eyes. With a frustrated sigh, I looked away and continued removing her clothes. Carefully, I slid off her soaked shorts, trying not to look at her fully bare body, and laid her in bed. Covering her with a blanket, I watched as she immediately closed her eyes. I remained seated beside her, lost in thought. Everything I felt while looking at her was beyond words. But one thing was clear: she had given my life meaning, as if vibrant colors had filled it. How had I lived without her until now? Chapter 12. Waking up, I threw off the blanket and froze in confusion. Where were my clothes? Why was I completely without them? I clearly remembered going to bed in my pajamas. Trying to make sense of it, I pulled a dark blue jumpsuit from the closet, shorts and a top with an open back, tied around the neck with a wide ribbon. After putting it on, I started gathering my things. I neatly folded everything, carried my suitcase down to the living room, and headed to the kitchen. From the fridge, I took out some cottage cheese, sprinkled it with sugar, added a bit of sour cream, and sat down at the table. With a sigh of sadness, I realized this was my last breakfast in this house. Was I doing the right thing by leaving? This question had haunted me all night as I tried to fall asleep. But I couldn't stay here any longer. Too much time had passed. I couldn't keep relying on Liam. It wasn't right. I needed to learn how to live on my own since fate had decided it for me. And honestly, who needed me here? Even Liam and I hardly spoke anymore. He was always busy with pack matters, and I was just in the way. Another heavy sigh. I'd finish breakfast, drop my suitcase at home, and head to college. "Hey," Theo suddenly said as he entered the kitchen. That was strange. He had never greeted me before or paid much attention to me. What had changed? Was he just happy I was leaving? I glanced at him. He was wearing only dark blue jeans, and I froze, my spoon hovering in the air. My gaze unconsciously trailed over his incredible physique, from his defined abs to his broad chest. Theo opened the fridge, took out a piece of meat, and as I ate, I watched him work. The way he tenderized the meat, seasoned it, and placed it onto the sizzling pan. His muscles flexed beneath his tan skin, and my imagination wouldn't stop torturing me. Then Theo glanced at me strangely. I could have sworn the corner of his lips twitched in amusement. Covering the pan with a lid, he turned to me, leaned his firm backside against the counter, and crossed his arms over his chest. "So, what was that little show about last night?" His question caught me off guard. I froze, shifting awkwardly on the stool. My heart stopped, then pounded wildly, losing its rhythm. I absently stirred my cottage cheese, scrambling for an answer. Did he figure out that I had lured him into my room? No, not that.
What?
I stammered, feigning confusion. What are you talking about? I'd confuse him, and he'd forget what he meant. I'm talking about your little nighttime swim in the river. You were acting weird. Theo's response threw me off completely. What was he even talking about? I choked, then coughed before bursting into laughter. What's so funny? He frowned. Are you okay? You're saying I went swimming last night? I smirked.
Yes. Why?
Are you messing with me? He narrowed his eyes as if trying to read my thoughts. No. I shook my head. I just don't remember any of it. Go ahead, laugh, Theo muttered, nodding. I'm not joking. I smiled, deciding to tell him the truth. It happens sometimes. I want to do something at night, and then I don't remember. I'm a sleepwalker. A sleepwalker? Now Theo couldn't hold back anymore. He laughed harder than I had ever seen before. His deep, genuine laugh sent warmth through me. I stood there, watching him, smiling openly, savoring the moment of happiness. The thought that I'd have to say goodbye to them in just half an hour weighed on me more and more. Who knew if I'd ever see them again? At that moment, Liam walked into the kitchen. Good morning. Looks like you two are having fun. Care to share the joy? His voice was full of energy as he sat across from me, resting his arms on the table. Can you believe it? Theo caught me taking a midnight swim in the river. I said with a smile. And I don't remember a thing. I told him I was sleepwalking and Theo laughed again, and I couldn't help but smile, enjoying his carefree laughter. See, I gestured toward Theo. What nonsense, he said, his amusement fading slightly. That's the dumbest excuse I've ever heard. It's not nonsense, I protested. I actually have a sleep disorder. I sometimes sleepwalk, especially during a full moon. Sometimes even more often. Well, that explains a lot. Theo's expression turned more serious. Your weird behavior, the blank stare, and your little nighttime visit to my bedroom. I blushed, embarrassed, and nervously bit my lip. It was hard to respond to his accusation, but I tried. I didn't control my actions. But you, on the other hand, were fully aware last night. So why did you undress me? I raised my voice, ignoring Liam's curious gaze as he observed our argument. You should be thanking me instead of attacking me. I pulled you out of the river when you had almost fully submerged. Theo replied with a hint of reproach. Well, thanks, I muttered, returning to my food. Theo lifted the lid and flipped the meat, its aroma already filling the kitchen. Liam kept watching me, as if he wanted to say something but hesitated. Well, go on, say it. I nudged him with a smile. You really decided to leave? I saw your suitcase in the living room. His voice carried a trace of sadness. Yes, I have to. It's for the best for everyone. I glanced briefly at Theo, who was focused on slicing cucumbers for a salad. In a few minutes, I was outside, saying goodbye to Liam. Other werewolves were walking around, but only Theo stood by the window, arms crossed, silently watching everything unfold. Well, I should go, I said with sadness, glancing at his silent figure. Liam, thank you for everything. If it weren't for you, if it weren't for me, someone else would have helped you. Liam shrugged and held out his arms. Come here, give me a hug. I hugged him, savoring the warmth of his embrace, forgetting everything else for a moment. He was a good guy, and I hoped he would find his happiness. Liam pulled back and handed me a piece of paper with a phone number. "If you ever need anything, call me," he said with a smile. "I will," I replied, smiling back. Then my gaze drifted to Theo again, but he remained as silent as before, arms still crossed. A strange uneasiness stirred in my chest. Why wasn't he saying anything? Why wasn't he trying to stop me? Hadn't there been something between us? With a heavy heart, I took a few steps, hoping he would call out to me. But his silence cut through me like a blade. Why was he giving up so easily? Had his feelings for me not been real? I turned around, unable to hold back my emotions any longer. "Theo," I called his name, and when he didn't respond, I added, "Don't you have anything to say to me before I leave?" "What is there to say?" he replied, his voice indifferent. "Take care." His words were so cold that I found it hard to breathe. I couldn't stay silent anymore. Setting my suitcase down, I marched toward him. "That's it?" I asked, staring into his amber eyes, which now seemed icy. "You know what? I'm glad I'm leaving. I can't stand cowards who spend their lives whining and hating the world. If it makes you feel better, go ahead and keep hiding in your castle, away from everyone. I just hope you realize someday what you lost." His silence only fueled my anger. I turned sharply and strode toward the car, barely aware of my own movements. I didn't want to look back, but my heart ached. Why didn't he stop me? What did all of this mean? But I would leave, no matter how much it hurt. I had survived worse. I would survive this too. Chapter 13. Theo. I watched as Dana disappeared into the distance, and a raging fire ignited inside me. How could I let this happen? What an idiot I was. Why didn't I stop her? Everything she said was true. I really was a coward. The beast inside me clawed at my flesh, tearing me apart, desperate to break free and bring my mate back. Yes, she was my mate. I realized at the moment her figure vanished into the darkness. How wrong I had been to think she had something with Liam. There was nothing between them, nothing now, and hopefully nothing ever. But what had I done? I had let her go. And now, with my ex back in the pack, things had gotten even more complicated. First, I'd deal with Alice, find out what she wanted, and then I'd try to bring Dana back. The second the car crossed the pack's borders, I couldn't hold back a growl. A burst of rage, claws unleashed, I slashed at the wooden wall of the house with full force. "Why are you so angry?" Liam asked, looking at me in confusion. "It's your own fault. You should have stopped her."
Not now.
I snarled, clenching my jaw, my entire body tense. "Where did you put Alice?" "In Roger's old house," my brother replied, concern in his voice. "But don't you dare touch her, got it? Why are you defending her?" I snapped, jabbing a finger at his chest. "Did you forget what she did to me? Because of her, I almost ended up dead. How could you let her stay?" "Let it go, Theo," Liam said evenly. "It's all in the past." "The past?" I scoffed. "You call this the past? She didn't show up here by accident, and I'm going to find out what she's hiding." Without another word, I stormed off toward the house where Liam had placed Alice. The house was old, abandoned for 2 years. It once belonged to Beta Roger, but now it stood alone at the end of the street, near the forest. Something told me that Alice's return was no coincidence. She was hiding something, and I was going to uncover the truth. If she thought she could avoid my questions, she was wrong. No matter what my brother said, I would throw her out if I had to. I waited outside for about half an hour, arms crossed, leaning against the wall. Finally, the door creaked open, and Alice stepped out. "Well, hello," I greeted her with a cold smirk. She turned around. "Hi," she replied, noticeably uneasy. "Care to tell me anything?" I narrowed my eyes, watching her closely. She hesitated, searching for words.
No.
I took a step closer, locking eyes with her. She instinctively stepped back, tension visible in her posture. But she didn't get far. I grabbed her wrist and pulled her toward me. I want the truth, I said, staring straight into her eyes. What truth, Theo? She whispered, trying to avoid my gaze. Let her be afraid. If she was planning something against my family or my pack, she didn't deserve to stay. Who are you hiding from? I asked, not relenting. That's my business, she snapped, regaining some of her composure. I only smirked. You came to my pack, so now it's my business. I leaned in closer. Tell me who he is. This Amir. Why should I believe a word you say? Her heartbeat quickened, and her eyes darted away. I could see her breath hitch. I ran away from Amir, she admitted, her voice trembling.
But he'll find me anyway.
Fear laced every word. You were the last person I could turn to for help. I have nowhere else to go, so I came here to the pack. This house used to be my home too, once. She took a shaky breath. Her words were filled with desperation, but something in her expression set off alarms in my mind. I didn't fully trust her, but she needed protection. Nice story, I raised an eyebrow. But tell me, why should I believe you? Your heart races when you talk. That means either you're lying or it's beating fast for another reason, she interrupted, meeting my gaze. I kept staring at her, trying to figure out what she was playing at, what she really wanted. Her words irritated me. I grabbed her by the elbow and pulled her toward the exit. What are you doing? She gasped, struggling against my grip. I'm sending you back where you came from. Even if your story is true, you're still hiding something, I said, stopping to face her. And I don't help people who don't trust me. She looked at me with regret, tears slipping down her cheeks. I told you everything, she pleaded.
You have to believe me.
Amir will find me, and then she shut her eyes, choking on her last words. I felt her fear, and something inside me shifted. She was in danger. I couldn't just leave her to fend for herself. He won't find you, I said firmly. And if he does, he'll regret it. So, I can stay? Alice's voice trembled with hope. I nodded. Thank you. She threw herself into my arms, pressing against my chest. The scent of her hair made my heart stutter for a split second, but I quickly pulled away. Don't push your luck, I muttered, knowing the warmth of her touch would haunt my thoughts for a long time. Don't do that again, I growled before heading toward the river. Stripping off my clothes, I transformed into a beast and rushed into the forest, immersing myself in its silence. This place was the only one where I could lose myself, casting aside all worries and fears. Here, among the ancient trees, I could merge with nature and become a part of this world. Taking a deep breath, I inhaled the intoxicating scent of pine, beckoning me deeper into the woods, towards something unknown and mysterious. Catching a scent, I picked up the trail of a grouse and immediately dashed after it. Chasing it down, I sank my teeth into the bird's neck, then, satisfied, collapsed onto the autumn leaf-covered ground beside my prey. The sounds of the forest were soothing, pulling me in. I had no idea how long I had been there, but I didn't want to leave. Theo, where are you? My brother's voice suddenly echoed in my head. I'm in a forest. Did something happen? I tensed, sensing the worry in his tone. We've got a problem. Trey hasn't returned from his patrol. No one has seen him since yesterday, Liam said. Grabbing my prey, I headed toward the river. Shifting back into human form, I dressed and took the grouse with me, walking briskly toward the settlement. Something felt wrong, and I didn't like it. None of us had ever disappeared without an explanation before. Trey might have his reasons, but he hadn't warned anyone or contacted us. That was unsettling. My instincts told me this was leading to something bad. When I arrived home, I left the bird on the porch and hurried inside. My brother's scent led me straight to the Alpha's office. Behind the door, the elders and the strongest members of the pack had already gathered. What the hell is this? I burst out, feeling rage surge through me. Where the hell could Trey have gone? I stopped at the table where my brother sat, his fingers interlocked. "Theo, now's not the time for anger," Liam said calmly. "We need to think rationally. Did someone take him? Kidnap one of us?" I kept fuming. Or did Trey just go on a bender? If that's the case, I'll tear his head off when he gets back. I clenched my fists, my teeth grinding in frustration. "He's not responding," Roger explained. "His phone is silent too. Nick and I will check the perimeter. Maybe he got caught in a trap." "And why the hell isn't he answering? This is bullshit. We need to face reality. He's either been kidnapped or he's dead." Liam snapped. "Let's stay optimistic. I try to think of anyone who might want to harm us, but my mind was blank. Things were peaceful with our neighbors, and we had no enemies. Who could possibly wish us harm? It all seemed absurd and illogical. Maybe we were wrong. Maybe it was just a misunderstanding. Maybe Trey just got drunk somewhere. Oh, he'd regret it when he came back. Like my brother said, let's be optimistic." Hoping for the best, I headed toward Dana's house. My beast rumbled quietly, sensing my unease. As I walked, I realized I didn't even know where she lived. But my brother did. I contacted him, got the address, and continued on my way. I wasn't expecting a serious conversation, but at least I could see her, just for a moment, forget about the pack and its problems. Feel that familiar, sweet, woody scent. As I approached her building, I saw Dana stepping out of the entrance. She smiled and walked up to some guy from college. I froze 20 meters away, watching. They were talking, but I wasn't listening. And then that guy kissed my mate. With fury burning in my chest, I stepped forward, clenching my fists. My nails dug into my palms, and my blood boiled. I felt the beast inside me straining to break free. Closing my eyes, I struggled to calm myself. The last thing I needed was to shift right here on the street. When I opened my eyes, Dana and that guy were already gone. Taming the beast, I decided not to do anything rash. She left. I let her go. No use regretting it now. I let things slip, and I'd fix them later. After I dealt with Trey's disappearance. Chapter 14. The house was filled with emptiness and a heavy, oppressive silence. It weighed on me like unbearable pressure, cutting through my nerves like a knife. My ears were ringing, and I could barely resist the urge to cover them with my hands just to escape the silence. Time dragged on painfully slow, and I eagerly awaited the moment when Roma would arrive. Anything to distract myself from this suffocating atmosphere. He had promised to bring me copies of the lecture notes. We had agreed back at college to meet at my place at 9 in the evening. I hadn't invited him inside. I didn't want to create any false hopes. Why give someone a reason to think I might return their feelings when I knew I wasn't ready for that? Yes, Roma was a handsome guy, tall, with dark hair and an athletic build. Girls constantly flocked around him, but that wasn't my story. My heart belonged only to Theo. I closed my eyes and once again felt the taste of that kiss, the one that clouded my mind. A soft moan of frustration escaped me as I realized how unfair everything was. Something fell off. The phone rang. I quickly picked it up from the table and answered.
"Im downstairs."
Roma's cheerful voice rang out. "Waiting for you." Pushing aside my restless thoughts, I grabbed my jacket, slipped on my shoes, and stepped out. While descending the stairs, I pulled the jacket over my shoulders and rushed outside. Roma stood next to his sleek blue Porsche, grinning widely.
"Hey."
He flashed a bright smile. Hey, I replied with a polite, faint smile. Is this your car?
Yeah.
My dad gave it to me for doing well in school. Wow, that's impressive, I said, surprised. I hadn't expected Roma to come from a wealthy family. Why would someone with such resources be studying at a regular college? My expression must have given me away because he immediately answered my unspoken question. You're probably wondering why I didn't just go to England. Instead, I chose a veterinary college. I raised an eyebrow, and he continued, I'm going to return the car anyway. I don't need his gifts. Honestly, I just wanted to impress you. But the truth is, I don't want to depend on him. I got into college on my own. Once I graduate, I'll get a job at a good clinic. I want to help animals. I love them, he said, stepping closer. He grabbed the lapels of my jacket and added softly, and I love you too. His lips brushed against mine. For a moment, the world around me disappeared. I froze, not knowing how to react. But then I quickly snapped back to reality and pushed him away. Don't ever do that again, I said, my voice sharp with irritation. My eyes were wide in disbelief. We're just friends. I thought you had feelings for me. I care about you as a friend. Any other girl in my place might have accepted his advances. But I couldn't. My heart already belonged to someone else. All right, I get it. I'm sorry. Roma took a step back. Did you bring the notes? He opened the car door and pulled out a folder. Here, take them. He handed me the copies. All the lectures you missed. Thanks. I took the folder and, after saying goodbye, headed back inside. My heart pounded wildly, as if trying to escape from my chest. It was terrifying to think what could have happened if I had invited Roma into my apartment. Engrossed in reading the notes, I lost track of time. Yawning, I finally set everything aside and went to the bathroom. That night, I had a terrible dream, a nightmare that haunted every moment. I saw Theo, as if I were right there beside him. I felt his pain, his suffering,
Blood.
agony,
Despair.
and more blood. So much blood. The images flashed before my eyes like scenes from an old film that refused to stop. Fragments, screams, moans, and a distant hum, like an echo. But what struck me most was the wolf's howl, a sorrowful, tormented sound filled with pain and despair. The dream was blurry, like a fogged mirror, which only heightened my anxiety. I couldn't fully grasp what was happening, but one thing was clear. Theo was in danger. I woke to the sound of my alarm, but the unease didn't leave me. It clung to me with every breath as I tried to shake it off. After breakfast, I got on the bus and headed to college. Life went on as usual, but without Theo, it felt empty, like a piece of my soul had been ripped away. Something was missing. Why had I left the pack? Especially now, after seeing Theo in the arms of that brunette? There was something about that girl that unsettled me. Maybe I should call Liam and ask what's going on with Theo? I thought about it all day, and when I finally got home, I picked up my phone and dialed his number. Hello, Dana, is that you? I heard Liam's voice. Liam, hey. Yes, it's me. I replied with a smile, sinking into a chair. How are you guys doing? You have no idea how much I miss you, and it's only been a day. It's good to hear your voice, beautiful. I miss you too. The house feels empty without you, but things aren't going too well for us. What happened? Is it Theo? I asked anxiously, remembering my nightmare. A wave of worry clenched my chest again. No, my brother's fine. Why do you ask? Liam sounded surprised. It's just, I hesitated, searching for the right words. I had a terrible dream. It didn't make much sense, just flashes of images. Theo covered in blood. Screams. People shouting something. Anyway, don't mind me. Just a nightmare. But it scared me. Liam murmured thoughtfully. Dreams like that don't happen for no reason. It could be a warning. One of our guys disappeared recently. He was patrolling the territory and never came back. It's been a whole day, and we still have no clue what happened to him. That's terrible. I hope he's okay. We're searching for him, but so far nothing. We think he might have been taken, but by who and why? That's the question. I'm sure you'll figure it out. Yeah, as always. Listen, I've been meaning to ask, what exactly happened between you and Theo? The way you left your words made me think. His question caught me off guard, and my cheeks flushed pink. So, was there something between you two? Liam pressed. I feel like I missed something important. Did Theo hurt you? What did he do? I remembered that moment in the bathroom when Theo kissed me. I thought I wouldn't be able to, but somehow I did. There's nothing between us, I said honestly. Your brother wants nothing to do with me. That's all there is to it. That's where you're wrong, Liam said with certainty. You mean a lot to Theo. I'm his brother. I can feel it like it's my own pain. He's suffering without you. Maybe you should come back?
Come back.
I don't think that's a good idea. Think about it. Isn't it better than coming home to an empty apartment every day where no one is waiting for you? All right, I'll think about it. I replied with a smile. I would return if I could, but what would Theo say? I didn't want him to think I was chasing after him. All right, we'll talk about this later, Liam promised. But I gotta run now. Take care, beautiful.
Bye.
Chapter 15.
Tao.
I paced back and forth, unable to settle. The other werewolves walking the street on this overcast evening cast wary glances my way, but I didn't care. My mind was consumed by two things: Dana's kiss with someone else yesterday and Trey's disappearance. I couldn't calm down. I needed to find out what had happened to him. This feeling wouldn't let me rest. It pushed me into action. I wanted to go looking for him, but Liam had strictly forbidden us from leaving the Pack's territory, and arguing with him was pointless. I hated when he used his alpha authority against me. It was humiliating, but I couldn't just sit idly by. After running through the events of the past few days in my mind, I decided I needed to talk to Alice. After all, Trey had disappeared right after she showed up. It couldn't be a coincidence. She was clearly hiding something, and the thought of it wouldn't leave me. A fiery rage overtook me, and I headed to Alice's house. She was sitting on the porch, absorbed in a novel. I snatched the book from her hands and threw it to the ground. "What's wrong with you?" she exclaimed, but I didn't care. I grabbed her by the arm and pulled her toward me, forcing her to stand up. "What are you hiding?" I asked, trying to remain calm, though my anger was surging. I looked into her gray almond-shaped eyes and saw guilt, but for what? I couldn't understand. "Theo, how long are you going to suspect me?" I made one mistake. Mistake. I growled, unable to contain my fury. "You betrayed me. You tore my heart out and stomped on my love. Honestly, after you left, I wanted to rip your throat out, but the beast inside wouldn't let me. And if you don't tell me what you're hiding, I'll gladly do it right now." Tears rolled down her cheeks, but I didn't care. I continued to stare at her with murderous intent, not taking my eyes off her, waiting for her to speak. She remained silent, staring at the ground. After getting no answer, I made a desperate decision. I grabbed her by the arm and dragged her to the car parked outside our house. "You're going to tell me everything now," I said with fury. "You're hurting me," Alice cried out, but her tears didn't touch me. The days when I was willing to give my life for her were long gone. With force, I shoved her into the pickup truck and drove out the gate. On the way, she sat silently, occasionally sniffing. "Get out, we've arrived," I said, stepping out myself. She obeyed without a word. No resistance. I liked that. "What is this place?" Her voice trembled. "Remember," I said, grabbing her by the elbow and pulling her toward the cave, "I told you about hyenas?" I felt her fear grow. She was trembling all over, her breath heavy. Without waiting for an answer, I continued, "You didn't get to meet these creatures, but now you'll have the chance. If you don't tell me everything you're hiding, I'll leave you here. You know me, I'll do it. Soon these creatures will return from hunting, and they'll find their gift here. Believe me, they won't be gentle. They'll devour you, bones and all." Alice broke down crying, but I didn't care. I felt nothing, even when the beast inside was silent. I was glad to have finally torn the love I had for her out of my heart. I'll tell you everything. Just let's leave here." Her trembling voice was barely audible. "Fine," I replied, shoving her back into the car and driving further. I stopped in a sunlit clearing, turned off the engine, and turned toward her.
I'm listening.
"And don't hide anything, or we might just turn around." No, I'll tell you everything. Just promise you won't give me to Amir, that you'll protect me." Desperation sounded in her voice. "You don't need to worry about that," I promised. "And promise you won't be angry with me. I know you hate me, but just tell me already. What did you do?" I couldn't hold it in any longer, growling. She flinched, nodded, and began to speak. "I exposed your secret, the werewolves."
I'm sorry.
"What did you do?" I couldn't believe my ears. But I hadn't heard wrong. My fists clenched, and blood rushed to my head. I didn't mean to. It happened by accident at one of the parties. I drank and... "Keep going," I said, forcing myself to stay calm. "Who did you tell?" "Amir and his friends." That day started like a celebration. We were at the club celebrating his successful deal. Usually, such parties ended with a trip to the casino, but this time Amir wanted something different. And there I was, foolishly suggesting he get a personal werewolf. Everyone laughed. They said that a real werewolf would be a real gem in their collection, if they actually existed. I realized I'd said something stupid and quickly tried to change the subject. The conversation seemed to be moving away from it, but Amir didn't forget. A few days later, he asked me where to find the pack. I laughed, told him I had no idea, but that didn't stop him. He locked me in a room with no food or water. I was in that hell for 3 days. I swore I didn't know where the pack was, that I was just joking, but Amir was relentless. Once he got an idea in his head, he wouldn't back down. It was hard for Alice to recall this. I felt how genuinely upset she was. But the fact that she had betrayed not just me, but the entire pack filled my soul with a storm of rage. His guards, Alice swallowed, tears rolling down her cheeks. "What did they do to you?" Her voice trembled, and with every word she spoke, the pain she felt consumed me. "They tortured me, cut me alive, but I stayed silent. I didn't tell them anything. I couldn't take it anymore and pulled her toward me, embracing her. I gently ran my hand through her hair, trying to calm her and myself. In my mind, a picture formed of how I would tear off that bastard Amir's head, and no amount of money would be able to sew it back on. My wolf inside me was growling furiously, demanding revenge for her suffering. "Who is he?" I asked, gritting my teeth. "His name is Amir Zahor. He's Pakistani. He owns a casino and a nightclub called Devil's Dogs. He has everything: money, power, access to any information. He controls everything, and he won't stop until he gets what he wants. He's declared a hunt on werewolves, and it's all my fault," she sobbed, pressing herself against me.
I'm sorry, too.
I didn't know what I was saying. This man is terrifying. I don't want him to find me. I don't want him to hurt you. Why did you get involved with him? Did you fall for his money? I growled, pulling her away from me. I was ready to explode with anger. I didn't want to. I loved you. And she fell silent, wiping her tears, then sighed heavily. "Remember, not long before we broke up, I went to a friend's birthday at the Devil's Dogs Club? The name suited the owner perfectly. I nodded, remembering that day. Liam and I had gone to a neighboring town to meet the leader of the Northern Pack, so I couldn't go with Alice. That's when Amir noticed me. He started courting me. The waiters brought drinks and snacks from him. I kept refusing, but he didn't give up. After the club closed, he offered to give us a ride home. I was going to stay at Liz's. When we got to her house, he dropped her off and asked me to stay for a few words. And what did he say to you? I crossed my arms over my chest, tilting my head. What could he offer? A luxurious life with no worries. I told him I had a boyfriend, but that didn't stop him. He said he wouldn't let us be together anyway, and that it would be better if I left you on my own. And if not, he'd find you and... She fell silent. And you just left. How pathetic. You didn't even try to talk to me. I couldn't understand why she hadn't told me the truth. I wanted to, I swear I wanted to, but his guards were following me everywhere. They had weapons, I saw. I was scared. I couldn't bring them here, so that day I didn't show up at the pack. I texted you saying I'd stay with my parents for a few days because, well, you remember. Yes, I clearly remembered that message. Honey, I'll stay at my parents for a week. They're going through a tough time. They need my support. I never doubted it. Parents are sacred. I fell for her empty words. I waited, like an idiot, for her return. And she just laughed at me, mocked me while I was making plans for the future. I remember, I muttered through my teeth. I was afraid Amir would find out about the pack. About us. I couldn't let that happen, so I made the decision. Forgive me. So now you're both a victim and a savior? Is that how it is? And I'm just the weakling who couldn't protect my own pair? I shouted, letting my hands drop. Anger was boiling inside me again. I was on the edge. Realizing that my pair had gone to a billionaire to save the pack hit me like a lightning bolt. The wolf inside me let out a heart-wrenching howl, as if it couldn't bear it either. Now the situation was clear. Some rich bastard had kidnapped one of us. But what if he wouldn't stop there? How many more werewolves did he need for his collection? I needed to urgently tell my brother what I had learned from Alice. Maybe she was being watched, and now those damned people knew the location of the pack.